Chapter 45. There were more than a dozen men and women in the dimly lit room. Everyone's eyes were either occupied by the beauty in their arms or the MTV on the big screen. No one noticed the bald-headed man and Fang Yan, who was following behind the bald-headed man. In such a situation, Brother Baldy did not know what to do. He did not know whether to stand or sit. He could only turn around and wait for Fang Yan's instructions. Fang Yan winked at him, then hugged him, and sat in the leftmost corner of the room. A girl with an oval face was ordering songs. Seeing the bald guy sit down, she said fawningly, "Brother Da, what song do you want to sing? Let me help you." "No need," the bald guy said with a dark face. "Don't be like that." The girl thought the bald guy was in a bad mood. She said with a smile, "I'll order your favorite song, Invincible." Invincible was the theme song of Young and Dangerous 3, Invincible, during the golden age of Hong Kong movies. As long as one was in the underworld, Zhang Yijian's character, Chen Haonan, was their idol. They were extremely familiar with every song he sang, and many veteran fans could even memorize every one of his classic lines. Baldy was also a hardcore fan of Chen Haonan. In the past, every time he came to the nightclub he would pick Zhang Yijian's Invincible, Blood is Burning, Blade Shadow, and other songs to roar to his heart's content with his brothers. For a moment, they even felt that being a gangster was the sexiest, manliest, and most promising thing in the world. Of course, when they had no money to pay the rent and were hungry, they would wonder if they had gone the wrong way. But today's situation was a little different. The girl said she would order Invincible for the bald guy, which made the bald guy feel humiliated and angry. If I'm invincible, why am I being controlled by someone like a dog on a chain and being ordered around by someone else? Seeing the bald guy's murderous eyes, the oval face was a little scared. He muttered, "If you don't want to sing, then don't sing. Why are you looking at me like that? Just order whatever you want to sing." After saying that, the girl got up and ran away. She instinctively felt danger. "Be gentle with girls," Fang Yan said to the bald guy. After thinking for a while, he added, "Unless that woman is called Yi Ro." Baldy's mouth turned into an O shape. "Who is Yi Ro? She sounds like a very gentle girl." Fang Yan poked the bald man's shoulder and said, "Order a song for me." Baldy looked at Fang Yan in shock. "Big brother, whether you want to beat or scold me, just state your attitude. Why are you dragging your feet? Is this where you sing? Burning Blood?" Fang Yan pondered for a while and chose a song that suited the occasion. Singing Chen Haonan's songs made it easier to mingle with the hooligans. The Baldy had no choice but to choose the song that Fang Yan requested. Brother Wolf's song, "Why Can't People in Love Be Together?" came to an end and one warm applause from everyone in the private room. The music of Blood on the Fire started. Brother Wolf did not put down the microphone. Instead, he sang along with the rhythm. "You're the one I can't find. A hopeless attitude. A man in peril, you'll make it." Fang Yan had originally wanted to sing alone, but under the current circumstances, he could only sing a chorus with Brother Wolf. "Time is merciless, but I'm still willing. Breaking a new story for you, love and righteousness. I know today love and righteousness. I don't need to doubt again." The more they sang, the more emotional they became. And the more they sang, the more passionate they became. One had a rough and hoarse voice, while the other had a standard and clear Cantonese. The combination had an unimaginable sense of beauty. At the end of the song, cheers, whistles, and applause rang out wildly. Brother Wolf dropped the microphone, picked up the wine glass in front of him, and shouted, "Good. Too good. Who sang with me just now? Let's have a toast." Fang Yan picked up someone's wine glass in front of him and said, It's me. You're a new brother. You don't look familiar." A big fatso beside Fang Yan said. As he spoke, one of his chubby hands was groping the chest of the girl in his arms. This made Fang Yan extremely dissatisfied with him. "Respect the girl." Brother Wolf ran over with a glass of wine. When he saw Fang Yan's face halfway, his thoughts stopped for a moment. He stepped forward out of habit and almost fell flat on his face. "Brother Wolf, are you okay?" The punks saw that Brother Wolf almost fell and rushed over to help him. Brother Wolf stared at Fang Yan fiercely and shouted, "Fang Yan, it's me." Fang Yan waved happily. Baldy looked at Fang Yan, as if he was looking at an idiot. What was this guy trying to do? The punks standing beside Brother Wolf were also stunned. When did the enemy break into their team? Why are you here? Brother Wolf stared fiercely at Baldy, who was sitting next to Fong Yen, and asked fiercely. Fong Yen pointed to Baldy and said, Brother Baldy brought me here. We went to the hospital together to see Blondie. He said Brother Wolf was singing here, so he invited me to come and play. Baldy? Brother Wolf gritted his teeth and called out Baldy's nickname. If looks could kill, Baldy's bald head would have burst open and fallen to the ground. Brother Wolf, I didn't invite him. Baldy was anxious and hurriedly explained. If the boss misunderstood, how would he be able to survive in the underworld in the future? He followed me. He followed me to the hospital, and then here. I didn't say Brother Wolf was singing here, and I didn't invite him. It doesn't matter how you came. Fong Yin waved his hand generously and said, The key is that we hit it off. Come, Brother Wolf, let me give you a toast, to the song Blood is Burning. 1,000 songs are not enough when we meet. Let's sing a few more in a while. From tonight onwards, all the previous grievances will be written off. As soon as Fong Yin lifted his foot, Brother Wolf hurriedly stepped back. He stared at Fong Yin cautiously and said, Fong Yin, I'm warning you, don't mess around, or I'll call the police. Call the police? Fong Yin was so angry that his balls were cramping. Your father is a gangster, okay? You're King gangster, okay? You're black and the police are white. Black and white are incompatible. You're enemies. How can you call the police? In a society governed by law, do you still have professional ethics? Seeing Fong Yan's expression change instantly, Brother Wolf became even more cautious. He stood in the middle of a group of gangsters and shouted, Fong Yan, get out quickly. You're not welcome here. I'm not leaving, Fong Yan said. I won't leave even if you hit me, unless you tell me that our previous grievances are written off. Fong Yan had come to look for Brother Wolf to solve the problem. The problem had not been solved. Everyone had not shook hands, drank a glass of wine together, smashed the glass and hugged each other. You punch my chest and call me an Iron Man. I punch you and call you a good brother. Then you punch my stomach and call me a life for a life from now on. I kick your crotch and call you a mother***cur. Brother Wolf was about to cry. Only an idiot would hit you. You're a human trap. Do you think we don't know that? Brother Wolf, who is this kid? Brothers ***ck this guy up. Coming to our Master C's place to behave atrociously. I think you don't want to see the sun tomorrow. Brother Wolf, let's call the police. In the private room, there were a few people who saw Fong Yen for the first time. Therefore, they did not know how good he was, and were prepared to report his name to scare him away, or ask their brothers to beat him up. However, the men brought by Brother Wolf who had dealt with Fong Yen before were all in favor of the suggestion of calling the police. If he was not heartbroken, who would step on his dignity? You guys sing, Fong Yen said casually. He waved to Brother Wolf and said, Brother Wolf, come here. Let's have a good talk. Brother Wolf did not move. He was afraid that he would fall into the wolf's mouth again. Fong Yen sneered and said sarcastically, What? The famous Brother Wolf in Jiang who was so daring? I think you should change your nickname. Don't call me Brother Wolf in the future. Brother Mouse is more suitable. You're going too far. Brother Wolf was provoked and shouted with a red face. What do you want to talk about? Why do you want to frame me? Fong Yen asked. He had always been a very frank and straightforward man. I don't know what you're talking about, Brother Wolf denied. Let me give you a lesson, Fong Yen said. I was taken to a bar by my students to sing, and you made a move on my students on the dance floor. Was the first round your fault? As a teacher, of course, I can't watch my students be bullied by hooligans. Don't be angry, aren't you a hooligan? At that time, you were shouting that men are not hooligans and women are not crazy, right? I asked you to apologize, but you didn't want to. Then you challenged me to a duel. I beat you up. You molested my female students, and I beat you up. This second round, we're even, right? Brother Wolf did not read much, but he still felt that he had been fooled by Fong Yen. How could things be settled like this? 2 days ago, you brought some people to the gate of Rosefinch Secondary and waited for me. We had a good talk and shook hands. Although you don't deserve to be my friend, I thought that the past was written off. In the end, you did this to me. Why did you ask people to carry Blondie, who was smeared with human blood, to the gate of my school? Why did you ask those reporters to come? Do you want to ruin my reputation? Do you want to kick me out of school? Immature, Fang Yin said with a sigh. The way you deal with the problem is too immature. Think about it, if I lose my job, what will I do? A hooligan. If I become a hooligan, and am no longer bound by school and moral standards, do you think you will have a good life? Brother Wolf was shocked. Listening to Fang Wei's analysis, it seemed that he had indeed made a very serious mistake. If the guy in front of him became a hooligan, wouldn't all hooligans have to turn over a new leaf? Chapter 46. Do you think we are enemies or opponents? No, we are friends, not to that extent. However, we are definitely not enemies. I will be my teacher, and you will be your hooligan. From now on, we will mind our own business. Let's go. Fang Yin waved his hand and looked at Brother Wolf with a kind face. It was as if a grandmother wolf was looking at her own child. Take Blondie back and say hello to those reporters. Then, write me a letter of apology. Tell them that when you were harassing the female students in the bar, I acted bravely for a just cause, and that you held a grudge against me for taking revenge. Those photos were photoshopped by you. After my painstaking education, you finally realized your mistakes and decided to turn over a new leaf. You'll become a good hooligan with ideals, morals, and goals. You won't slander others for no reason. Fang Yin thought for a moment and said, It doesn't matter if you write the wrong words. The more the wrong words, the more it proves that this letter of apology is written by you. Everyone will forgive you. Who would criticize a hooligan for writing the wrong words? Brother Wolf's throat moved, but he could not say a word. Before meeting Fang Yin, he never knew that he was a man who could not speak. Brother Wolf did not speak, and the hooligans did not speak either. They were still waiting for their boss to make a decision. Since we are so familiar with each other, just say what you want to say. Don't have any scruples, Fang Yin said with a smile. No way, Brother Wolf said. No way. Why not? Because Brother Wolf had something difficult to say. Originally, he also wanted to keep the peace. It was fine to suffer a loss and lose face. Who asked them to beat others? However, his boss, Master Qing, intervened in this matter and told them to make the matter bigger and ruin Fang Yan's reputation. How could he stop just because he said so? People in the pugilistic world have no choice. He deeply understood the weight of this sentence. Brother Wolf said no means no. Why the F***ck, do you have so much nonsense to say? Big Fatso, who was sitting next to Fang Yin, scolded angrily. Do you know where you are? Do you know whose turf this is? Do you believe that I'll get someone to break your legs and throw you out? They were really too rude. Even a stray cat or dog dared to run in front of them and make noise. Pa. Fang Yin raised his arm and splashed the glass of beer on Fatso's face. The champagne-colored liquid soaked her hair and flowed down her cheeks, filling the room with the fragrance of malted wheat. Little bastard, how dare you splash it on me? Fatso was furious. He pushed the woman in his arms away, grabbed the wine bottle on the table, and smashed it at Fang Yan's head. Whoosh, the beer bottle flew out of his hand, and with a whistling sound, it flew toward Fang Yin. Whoosh! Fang Yin reached out and grabbed the red wine bottle in his hand. Then, he spun his body 90 degrees, and the red wine bottle made an intimate contact with Fatso's fat head. Kacha! The wine bottle was broken, and so was Fatso's head. Both sides were injured. Fatso's nickname was Four Eyes. He was known as Brother Four, and the younger generation also called him Master Four. He was the owner of the Yulong nightclub, and he was also a person who made his debut at the same time as Brother Wolf. Tonight, Brother Wolf came to Yulong to spend, and as an old friend, he naturally came to accompany him. He did not expect his luck to be so bad that someone actually came to his territory to make trouble. A fight broke out at the slightest disagreement. Fatso was indeed a person who had seen big scenes. He was hit on the head and was dripping with blood, but he still stood there as steady as Mount Tai. Cripple him. Fatso covered his head with his hand and roared angrily. The boss was injured, and the lackeys around the boss naturally had to take revenge for him. Without waiting for Fatso's order, two of the lackeys rushed towards Fang Yen with a beer bottle and a knife. Like wolves and tigers, Fang Yen stood still and turned in a circle with his left foot as the center. He turned to the left and just happened to avoid the attack of the beer bottle. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the guy who was regarded as the trump card by the gangsters. He turned to the right and just happened to avoid the stab of the dagger in his chest. He stretched out his hand again and grabbed another hooligan in his hand. The two struggled with all their might, but they could not escape from Fang Yan's grasp. A sky full of spinning tops. Fang Yan pulled their arms and spun them together. After 3 circles, the two could no longer keep up with Fang Yan's speed. Their feet left the ground, and they were dragged into the air by Fang Yan. Go! As Fang Yan spoke, he had already let go of them. The two gangsters screamed and flew towards where Brother Wolf was standing. Bang! Brother Wolf and his men reached out to catch them, but the power of Tai Chi on the two gangsters was not completely removed, and a large number of them were smashed and injured. The gangsters lay on the ground screaming and groaning. Fang Yan walked to Brother Wolf with a smile and said, "Can we talk now?" Brother Wolf looked at Fang Yan in horror and said, "I said I can't promise you." "You mean, no matter what I do today, you will insist on tarnishing my reputation and driving me out of school, right?" Fang Yan asked with a serious face. "I have no choice," Brother Wolf said in a low voice. "The leader has come forward. What can I do?" "You have no choice but to do evil?" Fang Yan sneered. "It seems that you also have unspeakable difficulties. Should I forgive you, even if you ruin my reputation and make me miserable?" This guy's words are really mean, Brother Wolf thought in his heart. "You also know that I am a very easy person to talk to. If you can't talk to me, I will beat you up," Fang Yan said in an unfriendly tone. "It seems that we can't talk to each other. I really can't do it," Brother Wolf said. "This matter is no longer under my control." "Under whose control?" Brother Wolf did not speak. How would he dare to betray his own boss? Fang Yan rushed over quickly and punched Brother Wolf in the chest. Brother Wolf saw Fang Yan's movement clearly and also reached out to block. It was empty. His hand was empty, and his eyes deceived him. Bang! He received a solid punch in the chest, as if he had been hit by a big bell. There was a fishy taste in his throat, and there was a liquid that wanted to spurt out, but was suppressed by something. Like a sprout that was about to break out of the ground, it tried its best, but could not break the stone on top of its head. After Fang Yan touched Brother Wolf's body, Brother Wolf became a human sandbag. The Tai Chi entanglement formula was used. Whether Brother Wolf rushed forward or retreated, there was no way to escape from Fang Yan's control. Fang Yan was the blue sky, and Brother Wolf was the stars. Fang Yan was the sea, and Brother Wolf was the boat. Fang Yan punched and kicked, and dozens of unique skills were displayed on Brother Wolf's body. When he finished, Brother Wolf's body could no longer stand, and he lay on the ground shakily. Uft! The blood that had accumulated in his chest was finally spat out, and Brother Wolf felt a sense of relief. Too tired, Brother Wolf thought in his heart. The men and women in the private room were silent, and everyone looked at the scene in front of them in horror. Who was Brother Wolf? He was a famous gangster in Huacheng. Who was Fatso? He was the big boss of the Yulong nightclub. In the past they were so high and mighty. Many people present saw with their own eyes that because a new waitress accidentally poured tea on Brother Wolf's new shirt, Brother Wolf picked up the hot teapot and splashed it on the waitress's face. They had also heard rumors that a waitress disobeyed Fatso's guest and was smashed in the head with a wine bottle. In their hearts, Fatso and Brother Wolf were strong, fierce, and undefeatable. However, in front of that young man, they were as fragile as a scarecrow made of paper. When Brother Wolf was beaten by Fang Yan, the gangsters looked at each other, and no one dared to step forward to help. When they finally made up their minds to save their boss, even if they were beaten up by Fang Yan had already stopped. This made them feel extremely regretful. While they felt that they could not show their loyalty in front of their boss, they secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fang Yan once again stepped on Brother Wolf's chest, just like the last time in the bar. I'm not here to negotiate with you, Fang Yin said coldly. I'm here to make a request. Remove those reporters and apologize to me publicly. It's not me who wants to mess with you. It's not me who wants to mess with you, Brother Wolf said with a sorry face, his mouth stained with blood. I'm just following orders. Don't you know who you offended? It's them who want to mess with you. It has nothing to do with me. Fang Yan's eyes were cold as he asked, Who is it? Beg me? Beg me. Brother Wolf vomited blood, his face ferocious. I'll tell you if you kneel down and beg me. The pain brought out the courage in Brother Wolf's bones. He finally overcame his fear of Fang Yin and roared. I've never kneeled. Fang Yin refused. Then don't even think about knowing the answer. Fang Yin, you don't know who you offended. You're dead. You're definitely dead. Fang Yin shook his head gently, squatted down and looked at Brother Wolf, who was lying on the ground, and said, If I were you, I wouldn't provoke the person who can decide your fate at this time. Bang. Fang Yin punched Brother Wolf's left eye. Bang. Fang Yin punched Brother Wolf's right eye again. Bang. 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 Fang Yan's countless punches landed on Sirius's eyes, eyebrows, nose and mouth. Stop. A cold voice came from behind. Move again and I'll kill you. Fang Yin turned around and saw Fatso holding a black pistol in his hand, aiming at his head. Fang Yin raised his hands and said, You can insult me, but please don't hurt me. Put down the gun and talk. Chapter 47. Seeing that Fang Yin had been conquered by his pistol, Fatso became spirited. He quickly walked up to Fang Yin, laughed and shouted, Come on. Come on. Hit me. Hit me. Do you dare to hit me again? Hit me here. Hit my face. Slap. Fang Yin slapped Fatso's face. Fatso was stunned. Brother Wolf was stunned. Everyone was stunned. Fatso had traveled far and wide. He started as a gangster, and later led dozens of brothers to kill people in the streets. That was how he gained his fame. Taking people's lives, breaking people's hands and feet. He had done many immoral things. Moreover, he was willing to do it. He had encountered countless dangers in his life, but as long as he had a gun in his hand, he could find some bargaining chips or dignity. He had never been as embarrassed as he was today, even when he was pushed to the ground and his back was slashed more than a dozen times. Why did he really hit me? Mr. Fatty couldn't understand. What he meant by this sentence was, Now that the gun is in my hand, if you dare to touch me, I will shoot you. I heard that you are a teacher. Why can't you understand human language? Mr. Fatty was stunned at first, and then he became angry. He pointed the gun at Fang Yan's head and said fiercely, Damn you, you want to die. The corner of Fang Yan's eyes glowed red. His originally soft hair suddenly became stiff and erect. He stared coldly at Fatso and said word by word, There was a man who pointed a gun at my head, and then I disabled him. Fatso's heart could not help but tremble. Why did this guy suddenly become so murderous? Wasn't he a lowly person? Moreover, when Fatso looked at Fang Yan's eyes, the murderous intent in his heart would instantly disintegrate, and then turn into timidity and fear. Compared to him, it was as if he was the killer, and he was just a hand. Fang Yin reached out and grabbed the gun on his head, saying, Shoot. Hit between the eyebrows. Fatso's grip on the gun started to tremble. He wanted to pull the gun out of Fang Yan's hand. He wanted to shout, This is my gun, and I'll shoot it wherever I want. I'll shoot your thighs, your testicles, your feet, and I'll shoot it on the carpet or the sky. Why do you care? Fang Yan's hand that was holding the gun suddenly exerted force. He thrust it into the air, and then made a 90-degree turn. The koi fish turns over. Whoosh. Fatso felt a strong tug on his arm, and then tragically found that a gun was aimed at him. His chest. Ah! The women in the private room gasped. Shut up. Fang Yin roared. These women were too hateful. When Fatso pointed the gun at him just now, they were as quiet as dead people. Now that it was his turn to turn the tables, they shouted and screamed, as if they were being molested. Do you think honest people are easy to bully? His eyes were fierce, his means were sharp, and his body was dripping with blood. Now Fang Yin was like a god of death. His roar was really effective. Those women really shut up, and did not dare to say a word. Fang Yin looked at Fatso and shouted, "Kneel down. You don't dare to kill me." Bang. As soon as Fatso's voice fell, he was shot in the abdomen. Blood flowed, and Fatso's body softly fell to the ground. "I don't dare, but you do." Fatso looked at the gun in his hand, and tears of humiliation flowed from the corner of his eyes. "I actually don't dare," he said to himself in his heart. Fang Yin walked up to Brother Wolf and asked softly, "Now, do you give me an answer, or do I give you an answer?" "Master Qing," Brother Wolf said with a pale face. "It's Master Qing who wants to hurt you." "Yellow hair, take it back?" "Yes." "Are the reporters going to leave?" "Yes." "Are you going to apologize to me?" "Apologize?" Fang Yin was very dissatisfied with Brother Wolf's attitude and said, "Don't you feel that you have wronged me? You are gangsters and hooligans. What are you good at?" The hooligans started to play tricks, forcing a gentle middle school teacher to punch and kick him. "Do you feel guilty?" Brother Wolf also cried, "Don't stop me, let me stab myself." "Master Qing." Fang Yin repeated the name. Then he smiled and said to Brother Wolf, "Say hello to Master Qing for me." Seeing Fang Yan's bright smile, Brother Wolf suddenly began to worry about Master Qing's safety. Then he hurriedly drove this absurd thought out of his mind. Who was Master Qing? How could he be threatened by such a person? The reporters came with a bang. They acted as if they were going to get rid of a scourge and expel Fang Yan, the perverted teacher who seduced female students from the school. They were going to punish him, put him on a tiger stool, and drown him in a pig cage. They were going to ride a wooden horse and parade him through the streets. In the blink of an eye, all of them had left, as if nothing had happened. Although the lake was quiet, they could not bear to throw a stone into the center of the lake. Little Yellow Hair was discharged from the hospital. The first thing he did was to go to the gate of Rosefinch Secondary School to deliver his letter of apology. Baldy stood at the school gate holding the letter of apology and read aloud, "My name is Lu Fatsai. I am an unemployed person who is bored all day and doesn't know what to do. One day, I didn't offend anyone and was walking on the road. I saw a beautiful girl, and then my hormones Meng." He wrote cutie Meng, not Meng with a cursive character. The students laughed, thinking that Little Yellow Hair was really cute. "My hormones are acting up. I went up to ask him for his phone number. He wrote single, not female." Thus, the students laughed even more. They felt that this guy was gay. Little Yellow Hair stood in the middle of the crowd, letting them slap his face again and again. His eyes were filled with tears, but he clenched his fists. He said in the wind and rain, "What's this pain? Wipe your tears, don't be afraid. At least we still have our dreams." He said in the wind and rain, "What's this pain? Wipe your tears, don't ask why." He was a man determined to become the king of hoodlums. He knew that the road ahead was bumpy, and he had to endure the ridicule and humiliation of these students. But one day, he would become the king of Huacheng. Yes, he would definitely be able to do it. Because his idol was One Piece. Because teacher Fang Yen stopped me from molesting female students, I held a grudge against him. I wanted to ruin his reputation and get him kicked out of the school. However, after going through teacher Fang Yan's teachings, I finally turned over a new leaf and came clean. Teacher Fang Yan, I was wrong. Teacher Fang Yan, you are a good teacher. Teacher Fang Yan, please forgive me. I'm a little lost lamb who is deeply crying. Repentance is written in pinyin." The students laughed again. After Baldy finished reciting, he sent the apology letter to Zhao Dahai of the security department. After Zhao Dahai received the apology letter, he sent it to Li Mingqiang. Li Mingqiang took the apology letter and looked at it from left to right, up and down. After a long time he sighed and said, "In ancient times, Liu Bei invited Zhuge Liang 3 times. Today, we invited Fang Yin 3 times. We didn't manage to invite him 3 times." Because of Baldy's act of reading a letter in front of the Vermilion Bird Gate, the news of Blondie apologizing to Fang Yin quickly spread throughout the school. "Did you hear? Teacher Fang Yin was wronged." "Yes. I heard that the hoodlum wanted to molest the students, but was stopped by teacher Fang Yin. That's why they ran to the school gate and made a ruckus. I heard that teacher Fang Yin even hit him. He's good looking and can even hit a hoodlum. So handsome." The happiest were the students of class 9. Their feelings towards Fang Yin were very complicated. After a short period of contact, they all knew that Fang Yin was a humorous and talented teacher. However, this teacher's ability was as outstanding as his ability to cause trouble. They liked him and wanted him to stay and teach. However, he was like a small boat in the sea, a firework in a storm, as if he could be overturned and extinguished at any time. Fortunately, he was able to avert danger every time. Fang Yin could feel the nostalgia and passion in everyone's eyes when they looked at him. This made him even more energetic and in high spirits when he lectured. The bell rang. Fang Yin didn't have the habit of dragging out the class. He threw the half piece of chalk in his hand into the chalk box and said with a smile, "School is over. However, when the students come to class tomorrow, it's best to bring your raincoats." "Teacher, is it going to rain tomorrow? Is it a prop for class?" "It must be." "Mr. Fang, what are we learning tomorrow?" Fang Yin smiled and didn't answer. He waved his hand and said, "Goodbye." Fang Yin sent the textbooks to the office, packed up and prepared to go home. When he walked to the school gate, he found two girls waiting for him anxiously. Seeing Fang Yin coming out, the two little girls quickly ran towards Fang Yin. One ran fast, and the other ran even faster. The other saw that her friend dared to overtake her, and then her legs ran even faster. No one was willing to admit defeat, and no one was willing to be outdone by the other. They rushed towards him at the speed of a 100-meter sprint, which scared Fang Yin so much that he turned around and walked towards the security room at the school gate. "Fang Yin!" Jiang Qin shouted. "Mr. Fang." Yuan Lin's voice was also very sweet and delicate. Fang Yin had to stop and desperately gestured to the two girls, which meant that they would meet at the bus stop and not let people see that they were very familiar with each other. As soon as the storm subsided, the two female protagonists came to find him. Wasn't this a confession without being pressed? "Mr. Fang, you're home?" Baldy stood at the entrance of the security room with a large plastic teapot in his hand. He grinned at Fang Yin and greeted him with a smile. "Hey, these two students. Aren't they the ones in the photo?" Chapter 48. Fang Yin walked in front while Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, the two young and unadorable lolas, followed behind Fang Yin on his left and right. When Fang Yin walked, they also walked. When Fang Yin stopped, they also stopped. They were like Fang Ying's two little tails. Of course, these tails were a bit too pretty. Fang Yin helplessly turned around to look at them and said with a bitter smile, "Why did you two come here?" Jiang Qin squinted her eyes and smiled. The corners of her mouth curled up, and her nose trembled slightly. She said, "To find you." "Why are you looking for me?" Fang Yin asked. Fang Yin hoped that they didn't know anything. He hoped that these dirty things hadn't intruded into their innocent and pure world. Jiang Qin giggled as she looked at Fang Yin. She pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Yuan Lin quickly walked to stand beside Fang Yin and said apologetically, "Mr. Fang, I'm sorry. I dragged you into this." Looking at the girl's delicate and white face, seeing the fear and worry in her eyes, Fang Yin's heart softened. He said, "This matter has nothing to do with you. How is it not related to me?" Yuan Lin shook her head. The hair that had just covered her ears also swayed like a black wave. "When they bullied me, if you didn't stand up for me, why would those bad guys take revenge on you? It was because of me. If it wasn't because of me, you wouldn't have been harmed like this. I'm fine." Fang Yin couldn't help but rub the girl's curly hair. He said with a smile, "Look, am I not fine now? What's wrong with me?" "But..." The girl opened her eyes wide and thought for a moment. She said, "Is there really nothing wrong?" "No." Fang Yin shook his head firmly. "There's nothing wrong. There's no difference between school and school as usual." Standing on the other side, Jiang Qin stared into Fang Yin's eyes and said, "Those reporters came to our school to Jiang Qin, and to me, to ask us about our relationship with you. I told them that you were our tutor. You're our tutor after all. Am I right? I'm not lying." Sure enough, they found Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. However, this was not surprising, since they could find him among the teachers of so many schools in such a short period of time. How difficult would it be to find these two girls? At that time, A large group of students from number 26 middle school followed Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to the bar. As long as those hoodlums were familiar with one of them, the truth about the others would come to light. They didn't make things difficult for you, did they? No, Yuan Lin said. They just kept asking about the relationship between Jiang Qin and you. They also said that they took photos of Jiang Qin and you hugging and dancing together. Jiang Qin giggled and said, I said I didn't believe it and asked them to show me the photos, but they didn't agree. I don't know if the photos are good or not. Fang Yan was quite speechless. At this time, he still had to consider the difficult problem of other people's photography skills, but she didn't take the photos well. It didn't show the cleverness and beauty in her eyes, but made him look handsome and outstanding. Yuan Lin rolled her eyes and was very dissatisfied with Jiang Qin's behavior. We both insisted that you are our tutor. They couldn't ask anything, so they had to leave. However, I heard that the questions they asked were very unfavorable to you. They seemed to be deliberately targeting you. Fang Yan looked at Yuan Lin in surprise and thought that this girl's mind was quite sharp. Those reporters indeed wanted to discredit him, but they were behind it by the person called Master Qing. Did they look for you guys again after that? No, Jiang Qin said. However, this matter still spread in the school. Now Yuan Lin and I are both famous in the school, although we were famous in number 26 middle school before. How famous? They all said that Yuan Lin and I are fighting for a teacher's boyfriend. Jiang Qin curled her lips. Those little brats, what do they know? You are also a little brat, Fang Yan said. I am not. Jiang Qin hated being called little brat. How am I little? I am not little either. Yuan Lin didn't want to be outdone. Fang Yan saw the students coming and going looking at them curiously. He didn't want to be entangled with these two girls, so he said, This matter is over. You don't have to worry at all. He had to focus on his studies. School is over, go home quickly. Don't worry your parents. Fang Yan waved at them and walked quickly to the bus stop. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other and followed behind Fang Yan to the bus stop. Seeing the two little tails appear again, Fang Yan had a headache. He looked at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin and said, Didn't I tell you to go home? Why are you following me? I am going home, Jiang Qin said innocently. Jiang Qin invited me to her house for dinner. Yuan Lin giggled, showing two cute dimples on her face. When did I invite you to my house for dinner? It's not too late for you to invite me now. Why should I invite you? Because you are my best friend and bestie. But ever since Fang Yan appeared, I feel that there is a crack in our relationship. Am I not trying to make up for it? If you want to make up for it, stay away from Fang Yan, okay? You don't even cherish me as a friend. Fang Yan was speechless. What are these two little brats arguing about? Fang Yan took Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin home. Jiang Qin rushed to open the door and shouted, Mom, I am back. Strangely, he didn't hear any response from Sister Li. The door was open, but there was no sound. Mom. Jiang Qin stood in the yard and looked around shouting, I am not dead yet. Sister Li's gloomy voice came from upstairs. Jiang Qin looked up and complained, Mom, what are you doing upstairs? Yuan Lin is shameless enough to come to our house for a free meal. Cook more tonight. Hello, Auntie. Yuan Lin greeted Sister Li sweetly. Yuan Lin is here. Sister Li squeezed out a rare smile. Let Jiang Qin play with you. Sister Li looked at Fang Yan and said, Mr. Fang, come upstairs. I have something to talk to you. Fang Yan had long seen the alertness and alienation in Sister Li's eyes. Usually, she treated him more affectionately than her own daughter. But today's attitude was particularly different from the past. Fang Yan nodded and said, Okay. I will go upstairs now. Mom, what's the matter? I am hungry. Let's cook first. Jiang Qin said. Jiang Qin was also a smart girl. When she saw her mother's expression, she knew that things were not good. She wanted to delay some time first. She would act as a spy to inquire about the enemy, and then share the situation with Fang Yan in time. I will talk to Fang Yan first. Sister Li said stubbornly. It's okay. I will talk to your mom first. You two go eat some fruits when you are hungry. Fang Yan looked at Jiang Qin and comforted her softly. Seeing the tone of Fang Yin when talking to her daughter, Sister Li's expression became even uglier. The second floor of the main building belonged to the landlord's family. Although Fang Yin had eaten here many times, it was the first time for him to go upstairs. As soon as he went upstairs, he saw a huge living room. Sister Li sat in the corner of the sofa in the living room, staring sharply at Fang Yin, who had just come upstairs. Yes, she was looking at Fang Yin. The sky was dark, and the living room lights were not turned on. Sister Li's eyes emitted a frightening light in the dark, looking like a wolf. Pa! Fang Yin stood at the door and reached out to turn on the light. The light was dazzling. Sister Li squinted her eyes. It was the same action of squinting. Jiang Qin looked cute and charming, but when Sister Li did it, it gave people a feeling of killing intent. Who told you to turn on the light? Sister Li said angrily. It is too dark. I am afraid you can't see the sincerity in my eyes. Fang Yin said with a smile. He walked to the sofa opposite Sister Li and sat down. He said, Sister Li, what do you want to know? Ask away. Fang Yin's initiative caught Sister Li off guard. She was fully prepared for Fang Yin to deny it, and then she would tell the facts and evidence to beat him to the ground. She held back her strength, but it felt like punching cotton. After thinking for a while, she said, Fang Yin, tell me, how have I treated you since you came to our house? Sister Li is very good to me. Fang Yin said. Then why are you treating me like this? Is this how you repay me? Sister Li's voice suddenly became fierce, and her voice rose a lot. Sister Li, in fact, you can say it more clearly, because it is easier for me to explain to you. Fang Yin said with a straight face. He could understand a mother's psychological feelings at this time, so he didn't feel angry at all. I asked you to tutor Jiang Qin. Why did you take her to the bar? Sister Li asked. Fang Yin thought about it and said, Sister Li, do you think it is bad to go to the bar? Of course not. I don't think it is good either. Fang Yin said. So I accompanied Jiang Qin. I was worried that she would encounter some unpredictable danger if she went alone. You are quibbling. Sister Li heard Fang Yin shamelessly attribute the responsibility to protecting Jiang Qin, and the fat on her waist was trembling with anger. Fang Yin, you are a teacher. Is this how you teach your students? Jiang Qin is still a child. How can you take her to the bar? How could you carry her to the dance? Sister Li's eyes were red, and she said in a hoarse voice, Fang Yin, do you know? I have the thought of killing you. Chapter 49. I know, Fang Yin said softly. He took a tissue from the paper tube on the coffee table and handed it to Sister Li, saying, Sister Li, there's a big misunderstanding in this matter. I don't know if my explanation will convince you, but no matter what you say or do, I will completely understand. All right, then explain it to me. Give me an explanation. Sister Li wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with a tissue and said, On the night I tutored Jiang Qin for the first time, I did accompany Jiang Qin to a bar. That night, a classmate of Jiang Qin's was celebrating her birthday. Jiang Qin wanted to go and celebrate with her friend. At that time, I had two choices. I could either reject her, or let her go by herself. Either you agree to go with her, or you go with her. You can tell me, Sister Li said. Tell me. I won't allow her to go out. Fang Yin smiled and said, Sister Li, do you know Jiang Qin's character? If you had forbidden her to go out that night, would she not have gone? Sister Li thought about it seriously and said unwillingly, But you can't. Can't you hold her and dance? She was only a student, a child. Why would she dance? Why not go anywhere to celebrate his birthday? Why did you have to go to a bar? Young people like to imagine the future, just like how kids like to wear adult shoes. Kids like Jiang Qin also wanted to experience the lifestyle of adults in advance. They like to hold their birthday parties in KTV or bars, so it's not strange, explained Fang Yin. What about dancing? What's the matter with dancing? Sister Li asked anxiously. This was what she was most concerned about. Her daughter had yet to reach adulthood, and was her precious darling. Her tutor, whom she had painstakingly invited, turned out to be a hidden evil wolf. This gave her the urge to destroy the universe. Did they show you the photos? Fang Yin asked. Yes, I have. Sisterly answered innocently. In the photo, Jiang Qin and I are hugging each other? Yes. Sisterly became excited again. She could not bear the mere mention of the subject. I saw the photo. The photos won't lie to me, right? It was the photo that lied to you, Fang Yan said. At that time, Jiang Qin was teaching me how to dance. We weren't dancing in each other's arms. Sisterly, you don't have to believe me, but please believe your daughter. Fang Yan's expression was calm. He looked straight into his sister Li's eyes and said, She is very smart and beautiful. You should be proud to have such a daughter. Sister Li remained silent. Fang Yan also kept his mouth shut. He was waiting for Sister Li's final verdict. Fang Yan. Sister Li looked at Fang Yan and said, How many tutoring lessons have you given to Jiang Qin? I will pay you 100 yuan for each lesson. I will refund you the rent and the penalty. I can't rent this house to you anymore. Fang Yan smiled and said, Sister Li, I understand. I don't want the tutoring fees, I don't want the rent, and I can't ask for the penalty. I did something wrong this time. I'm sorry that I caused you so much trouble. Fang Yan stood up and turned to walk out of the door. When he reached the door, Fang Yan turned to look at Sister Li and said, But Sister Li's cooking is really delicious. Let's move tomorrow, Sister Li said. Okay, Fang Yan agreed. Let's have dinner together tonight. Okay, Fang Yan agreed again. Fang Yan went downstairs and Sister Li followed him. As soon as they went out, they saw Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin hurriedly running down the stairs. Obviously, they just wanted to sneak up to find out the situation, but they didn't expect to hear footsteps halfway down, so they had to run first. Seeing Fang Yan go downstairs, Jiang Qin winked at Fang Yan, meaning to say, How's the talk with my mom? Fang Yan smiled, indicating that everything was fine. Jiang Qin's tight face bloomed into a charming smile, and she made an okay gesture to Yuan Lin. As if happiness was contagious, Yuan Lin, the little girl, also smiled, revealing her 2 signature dimples. While Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin did their homework, Fang Yan returned to his rented house. Looking at his first place in Huaqing, Fang Yan's heart was filled with emotions. In less than a month, so many things had happened to him. This urban village called Che Pai, this alley, this small courtyard, and this house of less than 30 square meters. He didn't have time to really get to know them, but he already had to say goodbye. He came empty-handed, and when he left, he didn't have anything to worry about. Except for 2 sets of clothes and a few books, he found that he had nothing. Without luggage, he didn't need to pack. He folded the clothes and put them into the bag he carried when he came, and put the books on top of the clothes. All his work was done. Since he had nothing to do, he just lay on the bed and thought about things. He thought about his father's reaction, his father's angry roar, his mother's love and strictness, Yiro, Rosefinch Secondary, Lu Chaoga, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. He also thought about Master Qing. Master Qing. He repeated the name. It's my honor to meet you. Fang Yan heard Jiang Dai's voice from the courtyard. He had finished selling pork and came back from work. Then, Jiang Qin ran over and knocked on the door to ask Fang Yan to eat. Fang Yan opened the door, looked at Jiang Qin standing at the door and said, Is the food ready? Yes, Jiang Qin said. Then let's go, Fang Yan said. Let's go, Jiang Qin agreed. He said he would go, but he didn't. Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yan worriedly and said, What did my mother say to you? She asked if you've made progress in your studies recently. Pfft, I don't believe it. Jiang Qin sneered. That's definitely not what she asked. Fang Yan smiled and said, That's what she's most concerned about. So you have to study hard. Jiang Qin's delicate eyebrows immediately furrowed, and she said, Why does it sound like we're going to part forever? How can you say that, girl? Fang Yan scolded her with a straight face. That's what I taught you. Jiang Qin stuck out her tongue and said with a smile, It's just a metaphor. It's not like we're going to part forever. Come and eat. I'm hungry. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were already at the table. Jiang Dai was opening the bottle of wine. Seeing Fang Yan come in, he said, Mr. Fang, let's drink 2 cups tonight. Okay. I'll drink 2 cups with big brother Jiang. Fang Yan agreed with a smile. Jiang Qin pouted. She was very dissatisfied with the way Fang Yan called his father. Fang Yan called her father Big Brother. So didn't that make her his niece? Yuan Lin's mood instantly turned bad. Jiang Qin became Fang Yan's niece. She and Jiang Qin were of the same generation. So didn't she also become his niece? Sisterly served the last dish, stir-fried beans with wax meat, and said, "Let's eat. Let's eat." While talking about eating, she put food into Yuan Lin and Jiang Qin's bowls. Then she put food into Fang Yan's bowl. And the plate in front of Fang Yan was once again piled into a hill. "Come on, Mr. Fang, let's have a toast," Jiang Dai said with a smile, and took the initiative to pick up the cup. "Let's have a toast." Fang Yan picked up the cup. Their cups clinked together. And then they each drank the white wine in the cup. Jiang Dai smacked his lips and said, "Mr. Fang drank to his heart's content today. Drink, drink, drink. You only know how to drink." Sisterly was very dissatisfied with her husband, Jiang Dai. "Let Mr. Fang eat a hot dish first." Jiang Dai was not angry. He smiled honestly and said, "Mr. Fang, eat some food." Fang Yan ate a few mouthfuls of food, took the initiative to pick up the cup, and said, "Big brother, let's have another toast." "Let's have a toast," Jiang Dai said heroically. Jiang Qin felt that the atmosphere of the meal today was not quite right. But she could not find what was wrong. Her father was still leaving. Her mother was still attentive and considerate. And Fang Yan, Jiang Qin's heart suddenly skipped a beat. She finally knew what was wrong. Fang Yan's words became quieter. In the past, he would tell jokes while eating, and everyone would laugh uncontrollably. During the meal, it felt like a talk show. But today he was unusually quiet. He just kept drinking and didn't talk much. What's wrong? Jiang Qin thought. Jiang Dai was drunk. This was the first time he got drunk in his own home. Oh, the second time. The first time was when his daughter, Jiang Qin, got into number 26 middle school. Although it was not the best school in Huaqing, but his daughter was really amazing. Jiang Qin had something on her mind, so she put down her chopsticks early. Yuan Lin was the second to put down her chopsticks, because in front of Fang Yan, she could not show that she could eat more than Jiang Qin. Sisterly also put down her chopsticks, and looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully. Fang Yan ate bitterly for a while, then put down his chopsticks and said, "I'm full." Sisterly wanted to say something but stopped. She looked at her daughter and sighed in her heart, then said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, do you want some fruit?" "No thanks." Fang Yan also smiled and refused. "I'm really full." He stood up and walked out of the dining room, then returned to his room. He put the key on the table, picked up the small travel bag on the bed, and walked to the door of the small courtyard. The sky was dark, and the night was deep. Outside the door, there were tens of thousands of lights and endless traffic. There was the hustle and bustle of hawkers, the sound of vendors haggling, and the sound of couples quarreling. The whole world was lively and wonderful. However, standing in the middle of the crowd, Fang Yan found himself alone. "Fang Yan." Jiang Qin saw Fang Yan leave with his bag, and quickly chased after him. "Kiss." Sisterly reacted quickly and grabbed Jiang Qin's arm. Jiang Qin pulled with all his might, but Sisterly was too strong. No matter how hard he tried, he could not break free. "Fang Yan." Jiang Qin's eyes turned red, and soon tears flowed out. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have brought you to the bar. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let you fight. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have hugged you and danced. It's all my fault." The girl cried out, her tears cutting her face. Chapter 50. He looks like a dog. If someone stood on a high place and happened to see his back, would he exclaim like this? Fang Yan thought, definitely. He had been living under the protection and care of the Fang family. His father was very demanding of him, but extremely tolerant. His mother often scolded him, but loved him very much. His senior apprentice brother accommodated him, and his junior apprentice brother admired him very much. Except for being beaten by the violent woman Yiro every year, his life was actually quite stable and peaceful. His father's scolding was not real, and his senior apprentice brother's beating was not real. His father scolded him fiercely, and his senior apprentice brother punched him cruelly. But they never really hurt him. Those people outside would. When they praise you, they don't really praise you. But when they scold you, they really scold you. They would hurt him when they hit him. And they would kill him when they stabbed him. The outside world was very wonderful. And the outside world was also very abnormal. Fang Yin felt that he was hurt. Fang Yin. Fang Yin. A hurried and sweet voice came from behind. Fang Yin turned around and looked at Yuan Lin, who was running with a school bag on her back, and said, "Why did you run out?" Without waiting for Yuan Lin to answer, he said, "You should call me Mr. Fang. Fang Yin, Fang Yin. Fang Yin is not for you to call me that." "Who?" Yuan Lin put her hands on her knees, leaned forward and panted and said, I don't want to call you Mr. Fang. Jiang Qin didn't call you that. Why should I call you that?" Then she said, "Of course I ran out. I want to go home. Or where am I going to sleep?" "I thought you were going to sleep at Jiang Qin's house." Fang Yin said, No. My mother doesn't allow me to spend the night outside." Yuan Lin waved her hand and said, "Fang Yin, where are you going?" "Me? Everywhere is my home." Fang Yin said with a smile, "If you really don't have a place to sleep, you can sleep under the bridge for the night." No, Yuan Lin said anxiously. "How can people live there? It's dirty, messy, and dangerous." She bit her lip and thought hard. Suddenly she said with surprise, "Why don't you sleep in my house?" Fang Yin stared at Yuan Lin with wide eyes. This little girl dared to bring a man home? "I told Mom that I found a very good home tutor," Yuan Lin said with a smile. "It just so happens that you can help me with my Chinese." Fang Yin laughed. This little girl was really too naive, bringing a man home in the middle of the night and saying that he was her tutor. Her parents would probably call the police, right? "Don't worry. I have a place to stay," Fang Yin comforted her. "The school had already assigned me a house, but I thought that since I already rented a house here, I might as well stay here for now. Now it seems that it's not suitable for me to live here anymore." "Actually," Yuan Lin said with a bitter face, "actually, Jiang Qin is very reluctant to let you go. It's the first time I've seen her cry so much. It's not your fault. Those bad guys were doing bad things. So someone had to stand up for them and uphold justice. If someone wants to blame, it should be me." Fang Yin smiled and said, "It's your fault for being too good-looking and attracting the attention of the hooligans?" Yuan Lin was happy and shy and said, "I'm not as good-looking as Jiang Qin." This girl really indirectly admitted that she was good-looking. Fang Yin waved his hand and said, "You go back. It's so late. If you don't go home, your parents will be worried." "I want to walk with you," Yuan Lin said. "I know you're in a bad mood." "Why am I in a bad mood? Isn't it just changing places to live?" Fang Yin said with a smile. "The house in the school is better. There's no rent. Good people don't get good rewards. No one will be happy," Yuan Lin said. Fang Yan's spirit was lifted, and he looked at the beautiful and lovely girl in front of him in surprise. It was the first time he looked at her so carefully and seriously. Sometimes he felt that she was young and immature, and sometimes she showed a maturity that didn't match her age. She could see through his heart, which Fang Yin didn't expect at all. "Isn't this a normal thing? Why do you look so surprised? Do you have a cigarette?" Fang Yin asked. "No." Yuan Lin shook her head. "I don't smoke." "Do you have money?" Fang Yin asked again. "I'll go buy cigarettes for you," Yuan Lin said, turned and ran to the convenience store on the side of the road. Soon, Yuan Lin came back with cigarettes and a lighter. Fang Yin sat on the bench at the bus stop, tore open the cigarette pack, and put the cigarette in his mouth, but he didn't light it. Yuan Lin sat next to Fang Yin, looked at him curiously and asked, "Don't you need to light it?" "No need. I'm afraid I'll choke," Fang Yin said. "Then why did you buy cigarettes?" "I just want to see if smoking and drinking can relieve the sadness in my heart." "Is it solved?" Yuan Lin asked with her eyes wide open. Fang Yin thought about it seriously and said, "I feel a lot better. No wonder everyone likes to find someone to chat with when they're in a bad mood." "I'll try it too." Yuan Lin took out a cigarette and put it in her mouth. Fang Yin snatched the cigarette away and reprimanded, "Students are not allowed to smoke." The buses came and went one after another, coming and going again. There were fewer and fewer people on the platform, And finally there were only two lonely figures. Fang Yin didn't leave, and Yuan Lin didn't leave either. Fang Yin didn't speak, and Yuan Lin didn't speak either. The two of them just sat side by side, watching the traffic in front of them. The lights were on, and the world gradually quieted down. Puff! Fang Yin spat out the cigarette in his mouth on the ground, crushed it with his foot, and said, "Go back." "Okay," Yuan Lin said. She played with the mobile phone in her hand, and then frowned. "Lend me your mobile phone," Yuan Lin said. "Don't you have a mobile phone?" Fang Yin said. "My mobile phone is out of money. I can't call it." Fang Yin handed over the mobile phone, and thought that the students nowadays were so pitiful. Their mobile phones often stopped working because of arrears. Yuan Lin took the mobile phone and searched for a while. Sure enough, she found her pitiful number in the blacklist. "Damn Jiangqin," Yuan Lin cursed in her heart. Her fingers quickly moved, restored her number from the blacklist, and then threw Jiangqin's number into the call rejection list. After doing all this, she returned the mobile phone to Fang Yin with satisfaction and said, "Forget it. It's so late, and it's better not to disturb others by phone." Yuan Lin got up from the bench and said, "Fang Yin, I'm going back." "Call Mr. Fang," Fang Yin said angrily. "Goodbye, Fang Yin," Yuan Lin said with a smile. She reached out to a taxi, opened the door and got in. "These children." Fang Yin shook his head. When he woke up, it was a new day. Before Fang Yin opened his eyes, a faint fragrance came to his nose. His mouth, nose, heart, and lungs were full of the fragrance of the osmanthus. There was an osmanthus tree at the entrance of the courtyard, and the osmanthus was in full bloom. "This feels so good," Fang Yin thought in his heart. When he was at home, he could also enjoy this kind of life. When he woke up in the morning, the fragrance of flowers was everywhere. Birds were singing, some people were singing, and more brothers were practicing Tai Chi. Life was comfortable and easy, as if he was living in a paradise. He also found the feeling of home here. But why couldn't he be happy at all? Fang Yan's heart was inexplicably painful. He thought of the picture of a girl being grabbed by her mother and unable to break free, crying over and over again, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault," Fang Yin said softly. The sky was misty, and the clouds were very low. It seemed that a storm was coming. The weather forecast said that there would be heavy rain today. It seemed that there were times when the forecast was accurate. He got up and practiced a few rounds of Tai Chi. Then he helped Lu Chaoge weeding and watering the flowers and plants, and cut off some cumbersome branches and leaves. After that he took a bath and changed his clothes. After that, Fang Yin opened the door of the courtyard and went out. Li Ziqiang was about to go to school with a newspaper under his arm. When he saw Fang Yin coming out of Lu Chaoge's courtyard, he couldn't help but be stunned. "Good morning, Director Li," Fang Yin greeted with a smile. "Well," Li Ziqiang responded. "Fang Yin, why are you here?" "Principal Lu said that her house was empty, so she lent it to me," Fang Yin said. "There are rules in the school." Fang Yin interrupted Li Ziqiang's words and said, "Director Li, shouldn't you talk to Principal Lu about this kind of thing? You two are at the same level, right?" Li Ziqiang thought it was true. What was there to talk about with the teacher? If Lu Chaoge didn't give him the house, how could he be qualified to live here? Li Ziqiang was about to say a few harsh words to tell him to behave himself, and not to think that living here made him an arrogant leader of the school. Before he could do that, he realized that Fang Yin had already turned around and walked away. "Pretty boy," Li Ziqiang spat at his back. After he finished cursing, he felt a little sad. He also had a beautiful heart, but he didn't have a beautiful face. Fang Yin didn't walk out of the teacher's courtyard. Instead, he walked east along Bird River. He walked past the newly built teacher's building and the courtyard of the villa, before stopping in front of a small building at the entrance of Bird River. This small building was mostly made of wood. It was slightly older than Lu Chaoge's building. However, it was 3 stories high, and the area of the courtyard was several times larger than Lu Chaoge's courtyard. Fang Yin knocked on the door, and the wooden door opened. A silver-haired old man in a white tang suit walked out. He had tiger-like eyes and thick eyebrows, and he was full of energy. It looked like it had an intimidating aura. Fang Yin greeted him with a smile and said, "Grandfather, you haven't had breakfast yet, right?" The old man glanced at Fang Yin and said, "Let's go. Justice is more important than food." Chapter 51. Clear Sky Building. Fang Yin accompanied his grandfather, Lu Gong, out of the taxi. Looking at the name of the building written in gold at the entrance of the square, he said with a smile, "This is a record of merit. Do gangsters also like to be elegant?" Lu Gong completely ignored it and walked straight to the entrance of the building. The building used an electronic gate, and one had to swipe a card to enter. Fang Yin reached out and knocked on the glass door, summoning the security guard inside to speak. The middle-aged security guard came over and asked, "What's the matter?" "We're looking for someone," Fang Yin said. "Who are you looking for?" the security guard asked. "Du Qing," Lu Gong said loudly. Every word he said was powerful and resonant, full of energy. Du Qing. The security guard felt that the name was familiar, but he couldn't remember who it was. Could it be a friend he met at the table? "Your boss," Fang Yin added. The security guard was shocked. He stared at the old and young man cautiously and asked, "Why are you looking for our big boss? Do you have an appointment?" "I have an appointment," Fang Yin said. "Call Secretary Li and ask her to come down and pick them up." The security guard didn't dare to delay, and quickly went to make the call. Soon, he ran over again and said, "Secretary Li invites you in." The electronic gate opened automatically. Lu Gong stepped in, and Fang Yin followed closely behind. As soon as they reached the elevator door, the elevator opened. A beautiful and sexy woman walked in and said with a smile, "Is it Mr. Lu? The chairman is already waiting for you in the office." She looked at Fang Yin, who was standing next to Lu Gong, and said, "This is?" There was only Lu Gong's name on the memo. Fang Yin belonged to the unknown unregistered. Fang Yin. Fang Yin took the initiative to reach out to the woman, holding her smooth and delicate palm, and said, "Fang is in square, Yen is in Chinese. What a descendant of Yen Huang." Leah laughed. "Mr. Lu, a descendant of Yen Huang. Please follow me." Lu Gong glared at Fang Yin and stepped into the elevator. Fang Yin and Leah looked at each other and smiled, then followed closely behind. Leah used the nameplate on her chest to scan the elevator's electronic system, then pressed a blank button that did not show any floors. Fang Yin thought to himself, "This Du Qing is indeed worthy of starting out as an underworld. His sense of security is very strong." Even though the Clear Sky Building was his independent kingdom, he was still heavily guarded. Fortunately, Grandpa's student had a way. Otherwise, it wouldn't be easy for him to see him. The security on the top floor was even stricter, and the staircase and the lounge of the elevator was. The security on the top floor was even stricter. At the top of the stairs and in the lounge facing the elevator, there were black-clothed men eyeing outsiders. A hooligan is a hooligan. Even if he has hundreds of millions of dollars, he still can't change the violent and barbaric nature of a hooligan. Fang Yin mocked in his heart. Of course, this did not rule out the possibility of Du Qing wanting to show off his strength in front of his guests. After all, some coal bosses liked to bring a few burly men to increase their aura when they went out. When Shanghai Beach was on the air, Su Wenxiang, who was dressed in black and wearing a black hat, walked out of the alley with a group of lackeys in suits. How many hot-blooded men were envious of that scene? Leah walked to the door of an electronic door, pressed the video call button and said softly, "Boss, Mr. Lu is here." The electronic door opened, and Leah stood at the side and made an inviting gesture. Lu Gong was fearless as he strode in. Fang Yin thanked Leah and followed her into the room. This was a room that was so spacious that it was a little unreasonable. The entire room was about 1,000 square meters in size. There were no bookshelves filled with books, no computers, phones, and other electronic office equipment. The walls were all painted silver. Other than a wooden table and chairs facing the door, there was an indoor golf course. The indoor lawn was planted with lush green grass, and the ceiling was transparent. When he raised his head, he could see the dark clouds rolling in the sky. A middle-aged man wearing a polo shirt stood in the middle of the lawn, holding a club with both hands and preparing to hit the ball. Bang! With a graceful upward stroke, the small white ball flew out with a resounding sound. Beautiful. The man smiled happily. Obviously, he was also a golf enthusiast. The man was very pleased with the landing point of the small ball, and only then did he reluctantly walk out of the lawn with the club in his hand. Du Qing. Fang Yan's eyes narrowed slightly. Du Qing seemed to have sensed something, and his gaze immediately shifted to Fang Yan. Then he smiled and nodded at Fang Yan, indicating that he had greeted him. Fang Yan had searched for Du Qing's information on the internet, and knew that he was now a famous enterprise in Huaqing. He had single-handedly established the Green Cloud Group, which was involved in civil construction, port transportation, and seafood wholesale and export businesses. He had been chosen as Huaqing's Outstanding Entrepreneur of the Year for many years. He did charity work. Whether it was the earthquake in Wen County or the snowstorm in the south, he had donated tens of millions. He was a well-known philanthropist in the country. However, his background as a mafia was rarely mentioned. Perhaps, even if someone knew the truth and posted it on the internet, it would be quickly deleted. Fang Yan had also seen some photos of Du Qing attending events on the internet. He looked gentle and refined, and had the demeanor of a successful entrepreneur. In reality, Du Qing was even more charming. He looked younger than in the photos, and his mental state was easier to show. He had a square face, swept back hair, and wore white casual pants and white casual shoes. A black polo shirt pulled down his age, and he looked much younger than his actual age. This was a handsome man. Or rather, this was a refined man. If one did not know the inside story, they would not be able to connect this person with Huaqing's mafia tycoon, Master Qing. Yes, this man controlled the underworld forces of Huaqing. Some people said that in modern society, good families all followed the style of young ladies, and young ladies all walked the path of purity. So did gangsters. Old Mr. Lu, nice to meet you. Du Qing took the initiative to extend his hand to Lu Gong. His smile was very friendly. Lu Gong placed his right hand behind his back and said expressionlessly, "There's no need for a handshake. Your hands are covered in blood from fighting and killing, and my handwriting is covered in ink from flipping through books. We are not the same kind of people." Du Qing's gaze turned cold, but it returned to normal in an instant. He laughed and said, "Old Mr. Lu is really a humorous person. It's just the truth." "It's not really humorous," Lu Gong said with a straight face. Du Qing was still smiling, but his smile had obviously become gloomy. He said, "Then what is old Mr. Lu's purpose in meeting me?" "To seek justice for my grandson." Lu Gong pointed at Fang Yan and said. Du Qing looked at Fang Yan and said, "Little brother, this is the first time we've met, right? Why do you have a murderous look in your eyes when you see me? You want to kill me, and I want to kill you. What's wrong with that?" Fang Yan laughed. "What's your name?" "Fang Yan." Fang is in square, the flame of the descendants of Yan and Huang. Some people say it's the flame of two fires. Fang Yan. Du Qing repeated the name. He finally had a little impression of the man in front of him. At an invitational golf tournament, he was asked to deal with a man. It was said that the man was just a middle school teacher. He didn't take the matter seriously, and casually asked his subordinates to do it. This teacher actually had some background. Was he the grandson of old man Lu Gong? No, Lu Gong's surname was Lu, and Fang Yan's surname was Fang. "So it's you?" Du Qing laughed. "Before you came in, I really didn't think that we would have a chance to meet. I'm the opposite of you." Fang Yan laughed. "I know we will definitely meet, because you have a good grandfather." Du Qing sneered. "Asking an old man to come out and plead for you shouldn't be a hot-blooded man, right? There are two fires in your name, but you can't see any fire in your actions. This is the most convenient way." Fang Yan said, "Of course, I have many other ways. However, I think this method should be the most gentle of all the methods." Fang Yan not only knew how to recite poems and write, but he was also proficient in tracking, kidnapping, burlap, and beating people with clubs. As the saying goes, it's never a burden to have more skills. Du Qing looked at Lu Gong and said, "Old Mr. Lu, how do we seek justice for this?" "First, Tell us the real culprit behind the scenes, and we will talk to him. What else? Du Qing asked. Kowtow to my grandson and apologize, Lu Gong said. Du Qing's eyelids twitched. Those who were familiar with him knew that this was a sign that he was extremely angry. What if I don't agree? Why not? I can't agree. I don't want to agree either. You wanted to destroy my grandson, so asking you to kowtow and apologize is already extremely lenient. Do you really think that a hooligan's face is more important than my grandson's life? Lu Gong. Du Qing shouted angrily. I see that you're giving face to Chief Luo. Don't be so ungrateful. Do you believe that I won't get someone to throw you off this Clearski building? Du Qing looked out the door and shouted, Men! Whoosh! The electronic door opened, and a large number of men in black surged in. They surrounded Lu Gong and Fang Yin in the middle, looking like they could attack at any time. Fang Yin took a step forward and used his body to block his grandfather, Lu Gong, behind him. Move. Lu Gong pushed Fang Yin away. I don't believe you. Lu Gong glared at Du Qing and shouted sternly. His eyes were wide open, and his silver hair was flying. I'm a scholar. I know the 4 books and 5 classics, and I'm familiar with the records of the Grand Historian and the Book of Han. I write to nourish my qi, and I read poetry to cultivate my mind. I only have a few clothes and I'm penniless. But I have thousands of students, and that's my greatest asset in this life. I respect heaven and earth, respect morality and fear the people. You're just a hooligan. Why would I be threatened by you? Lu Gong strode in front of Du Qing and shouted. I know that your family is rich and has many disciples. I'd like to see what you can do to me today. Civil officials were not greedy, and military generals did not hesitate to die. They would definitely win the hearts of all the countries in the world. Even a mere scholar, as long as he had the courage to protect himself, he could even charge into a dragon's pool or a tiger's den. Chapter 52. Literature could shock the heavens and the earth. In ancient myths, when a good piece of literature appeared in the world, there would definitely be a phenomenon from the heavens. Auspicious clouds would fill the sky, drums would sound in unison, fairies would scatter flowers, saints would appear, and 72 saints would bow in worship. Generals had killing intent, while scholars had strength of character. When a scholar was not afraid of power or death, then he would be an invincible existence. Killing him and humiliating him was just to help him leave his name in history. Sima Qian was like this, and so could Lu Gong. Fang Yan's eyes widened, and he was deeply shocked. His grandfather was a teacher who rarely blushed with others. But when faced with an ambitious and ruthless underworld character like Du Qing, he was actually able to display such an aggressive and unyielding attitude. This was too surprising and pleasantly surprising. He held his head high and chest out, and his eyes were firm and stubborn. His thin face was slightly raised, and his silver hair stood on its own even though there was no wind. He was the shortest old man present, but at this moment, the aura he emitted enveloped the entire place. Respect the heavens and the earth. Respect for morality. Fear the hearts of the people. A mere hooligan, what was there to be afraid of? Fang Yin felt like his eyes were brimming with tears. This was how a man should be. His dantian was scorching hot, as if someone was holding a match and gently stroking it. The heart of Tai Chi, which had been stagnant for a long time, was starting to react. Was that sturdy outer shell finally going to melt? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He tried his best to pursue it, but he couldn't get any results. It was like an earthworm loosening the soil, like a seed trying to break through the membrane on the top of his head. Just a little bit more. As long as he exerted a little more force, he would be able to break through the soil. What was missing? What exactly was missing? Seeing Lu Gong's overbearing manner, Du Qing was extremely angry. How many years had it been? No one dared to clamor in front of him. Of course, there had been someone who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Later, on his way back, he had collided with a truck loaded with sand and stones. He had died on the spot, and the truck driver had abandoned the car and fled. How could there be so many coincidences in this world? Some coincidences were heaven's will, while others were human's will. Just as Lu Gong had said, his family was filthy rich, had many underlings, made friends with influential officials, and squeezed into the upper class with the identity of a greenhorn. As long as he said a word, or even just a hint with his eyes, there would be countless people willing to work for him, erasing the old and the young from this world. Yes, his underlings were also getting impatient from waiting. The people standing in this office were the brothers who had fought with him in the past. When these arrogant soldiers and valiant bandits heard Lu Gong's words, their eyes turned red, and they clenched their fists tightly. Du Qing could also hear Barbarian Bull's rough breathing, which was a sign that he was about to attack. "You may leave," Du Qing said. A tragedy was about to break out. "Big brother," Barbarian Bull shouted in a coarse voice. "Step down." Du Qing waved his hand and said with a smile. When Barbarian Bull saw Du Qing's smiling face, he immediately lost his anger, turned around and left dejectedly. He was not afraid of Du Qing's screams, but he was afraid of Du Qing's laughter. This was a phrase that his brothers always said. If Du Qing yelled at the people around him, then it proved that you were still his brother. If he smiled at you, it was best not to make him angry at this time. When Barbarian Bull left, the others also followed. Very quickly, those men in black left. Not a single one was left. "Elder Lu, why do you have to do this?" Du Qing looked at Lu Gong and said with a smile. "Although I, Du Qing, was born from a grassroots background, and my body is now stained with the stench of money, I still admire Elder Lu's great name for a long time. Huacheng used to be a weak city in education, but Elder Lu single-handedly changed the situation. He mobilized donations and set up schools. He personally attended to everything and invited talents everywhere. The most admirable thing is that ninth brother Lu made the school principal. This is really something that ordinary people can't do. No matter how bad my heart is, no matter how bad my character is, I can't hurt such an affectionate and righteous old man who wholeheartedly serves the public. Am I right?" From Du Qing's words, it could be seen that he did have some understanding of Lu Gong. Moreover, in his heart, he was very clear that he really couldn't do anything to Lu Gong. This little old man was a freak in the education field of Huacheng. He didn't have any authority, but most of the time, his words carried more weight than the mayor or provincial governor. He said that he was a penniless scholar, and Du Qing couldn't confirm this. However, he said that he had tens of thousands of students, and this was the capital that he was most proud of. Du Qing knew this very well. More than tens of thousands? He served as the principal of 9 middle schools, and when he found a more suitable candidate, he immediately gave up his position. When he gave up his position for the 9th time, even the central government was alarmed. Every time the country's president and prime minister visited Huacheng, they would request to meet this bookworm, whose name had shaken Huaxia. As the principal of 9 schools, how many students did he have? Among these people, how many of them were high-ranking officials, or even important ministries and commissions? The official with the surname Zhang, who regarded him as his teacher and father, was now the head of a municipality, and it was only a matter of time before he rose to the center of the country's power. No matter how influential Du Qing was, would he dare to touch an old man like this? Thinking of this, Du Qing secretly cursed the eldest young master Jiang, one of the 4 prodigies of Huacheng, Jiang Zhongzhu. "Didn't you say that the person you wanted to mess with was just an ordinary middle school teacher?" Even old man Lu Gong had come forward. Was this still an ordinary middle school teacher? What a scam! Du Qing admitted defeat, and his words all hit Lu Gong's weak spot. Only then did the old man's expression improve a little. He looked at Du Qing seriously and said, "I'm not here to take advantage of my seniority. I'm here to seek justice for my grandson. I just want to know, when and where did my grandson offend Mr. Du to the point of incurring such vengeance from you? Killing someone is just a small matter, but destroying someone's reputation is absolutely unforgivable." "It's a misunderstanding," Du Qing said with a chuckle. "It's a misunderstanding. Old Mr. Lu, you also know that my energy is mainly focused on the Green Cloud Group now. Those fighting and killing things are already in the past. However, after all, I've been in Jianghu. My brothers in Jianghu should still give me some face. Shall I find someone to ask?" "Ask," Lu Gong said. Du Qing knew that he had to give this grandfather and grandson an explanation. He opened the communication system on his wrist and said, "Secretary Li, ask Sirius to come see me. Also, bring someone in to make a pot of good tea." "Yes." Li's sweet voice came from the phone. "Old Mr. Liu. And this little brother Fong Yan. Come wait for a moment, they'll be here soon. Let's drink tea and chat. The biggest regret in my life is that I didn't study enough, so I really respect cultured people." Since Du Qing had said it like this, Lu Gong and Fong Yan had no choice but to give him face. Du Qing pressed the button on his watch, and the silver-white wall automatically shrank to both sides. A door appeared at the edge of the golf course, and behind the door was an antique room with a coffee table and chairs. Based on Fong Yan's understanding, these tea tables, and chairs were all made of precious materials, such as red sandalwood or Hainan rosewood. Furthermore, some of them were passed down from dynasties that had existed for hundreds or even thousands of years. Just the decoration of this small tea room would probably cost hundreds of millions of yuan. Lu Gong was very interested in these exquisitely carved wooden furniture. He seriously admired it and said, "It's rare to see large pieces of furniture made of rosewood nowadays, and such exquisite workmanship is even rarer. Mr. Du must collect it well. This is a national treasure." Old Mr. Liu is right. Du Qing will definitely obey. Du Qing smiled gently and agreed. While the three of them were talking, the office door opened. The secretary, Leah, walked in with two girls in Cheongsam. One was holding a teapot, the other was carrying boiling water, and they walked towards the tea room. The girl in the Cheongsam had obviously been trained in the tea ceremony. After they came in, they immediately got busy on the tea table. Washing tea, cleaning cups, brewing. Their movements were skillful and graceful. Just smelling the tea and watching the tea show was a beautiful enjoyment. Leah stood respectfully at the side, occasionally looking at Fong Yan, who was sitting with Lu Gong. When the tea was ready, the girl in the Cheongsam used the tea tweezers to distribute the teacups to everyone. Du Qing made a gesture of invitation and said, "Elder Lu, please." Lu Gong picked up the teacup and sniffed it, then praised, "Good tea." Du Qing's interest was piqued, and he said, "Elder Lu, may I ask what's good about it?" Lu Gong glanced at Fong Yan beside him and said, "My grandson is very picky. Let's listen to him." Du Qing smiled and said, "Then I'll ask little brother Fong Yan to comment." Hearing that Du Qing wanted Fong Yan to taste the tea, Leah and the two girls in Cheongsam immediately looked at Fong Yan's face. Fong Yan smelled the fragrance and looked at the color. He took a small sip and held it in his mouth to savor the taste. After swallowing it, he said, "I won't comment on the tea for now. Let's talk about the water first. There's no smell of bleach powder, so it's not tap water. There's no artificial addition of industrial raw materials, so it's not mineral water. It's clear and sweet, and it comes from nature. I think this water must have come from a famous mountain or a spring in a beautiful place. The most brilliant thing is, I don't know how this water was transported here. It's not musty, it's not hard to taste, and it still maintains a clear and fresh taste. It's like it's just been fished out of the spring." Du Qing praised and said with a smile, "This water is the water of the Tiger Mountain. My people found a spring there. The water is sweet and suitable for brewing tea. Using a wooden bucket to fill the water, the bucket is not covered, and fresh tea leaves are used to cover the dust. Then, using a wooden boat to transport the water. The wooden boat is paddled by people, so the water will not be stained with any smell of oil. Brother Fong is an expert, you're absolutely right." After a pause, he said, "Mr. Fong, would you like to comment on this tea?" "There's no praise for the tea," Fong Yan said indifferently. "The tea doesn't match this water. This is definitely not Mr. Du's collection of good tea, right?" Du Qing was stunned for a moment. Then he laughed and turned to Li Ye and said, "Serve the tea, serve the tea." Chapter 53. Leah took the new tea, and Fong Yin took it and brewed it again. The tea and water complemented each other, and the fragrance filled the air. With good tea and good water, the effect of brewing was indeed very different from before. After a cup of fragrant tea entered their stomachs, the atmosphere became more harmonious. It was as if they had accepted the other party's cigarette and drank a cup of wine at a social occasion, and their relationship had instantly warmed up. What a good tea, Du Qing said to the two women in Cheongsam. Xiao Bai shouting, you two have to learn more from Mr. Fang Yan. Mr. Fang is an expert in the tea ceremony. The two women in Cheongsam were still a little disapproving when Du Qing invited Fang Yan to comment. What kind of insight could a guy who hadn't even grown his hair have? Even after hearing Fang Yan's comments, they were still a little unconvinced. Who wouldn't be able to taste such good tea and water in their mouths? It wasn't until Fang Yan's performance of Kung Fu tea that they personally drank the tea, made by Fang Yan, that they were completely convinced by Fang Yan. They had also brewed this box of old Shu De Hong Pao, but the taste was not as mellow and fragrant. Hearing that the boss wanted them to learn from Fang Yan, the two of them stared at Fang Yan with shining eyes and said, Mr. Fang, please give me some pointers. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, I don't dare to give you pointers. You two are good at tea, but you still lack understanding of the materials. After a long time, you have accumulated a lot. Good tea and good water can be seen at a glance. Thank you, Mr. Fang, the oval-faced girl said gently. While they were tasting and discussing tea, Sirius was also brought over. He was pushed over in a wheelchair. Looking at Fang Yan, who was sitting opposite Du Qing, his eyes were filled with uncontrollable hatred. After staring at Fang Yan for a few seconds, he greeted Du Qing and said, Mr. Du, you're looking for me. Sirius, let me ask you something. Du Qing walked in front of Sirius and said, What's the conflict between you and Mr. Fang? Sirius looked at Fang Yan again and said in a low voice, A little misunderstanding. Has the misunderstanding been resolved? Yes, Sirius said. Someone had informed him before he came. So how could he dare to speak carelessly? Will there be no problem in the future? Du Qing looked at the bruise on Sirius' face and had a new understanding of Fang Yan. His subordinates had only reported to him that Sirius was injured, but they had not expected him to be injured to this extent. This kid's methods were also quite sinister. No more, Tianlang said unwillingly. The misunderstanding has been resolved. Du Qing turned to look at Lu Gong and said, Old Master Lu, you see the attitude of the person involved is quite good. Why don't you let me be the peacemaker in the middle, and let this matter rest? Lu Gong waved his hand and said, A pitiful person must have a hateful side. Let him go. Du Qing patted Sirius' shoulder and said, Have a good rest. Yes. Sirius's eyes turned red and he said in a choked voice, Thank you, Mr. Du. Du Qing waved his hand and Sirius was pushed out. He is also a good man, Du Qing said with a smile. No discord, no concord. Brother Fang Yan, we can still be friends in the future. Am I right? We are already friends, Fang Yan said with a smile. Mr. Du, I have had a deeper conversation with Brother Wolf. He said he was following orders. I heard that someone wanted to frame me. I'm really curious. What kind of person has such a deep hatred for me that he wants to ruin my reputation? Du Qing pondered and did not speak. Obviously, Sirius was just a staircase, so that the two sides could get off the stage without falling out. However, the other party was very dissatisfied with this explanation. Du Qing looked at Fang Yan and asked, Brother Fang Yan is a refined man. Which of the four gentlemen do you like the most? Bamboo, Fang Yan said. Integrity makes one strong, unintentional goods make one proud. After several storms, one would rather break than bend. It is still green all year round, not competing with other flowers. Listen, how high the evaluation of bamboo is. Brother Fang Yan should dislike bamboo the most, Du Qing said with a smile. Fang Yan looked at Du Qing thoughtfully with a stern expression. Haha, drink some tea. Drink some tea. Du Qing said with a smile. Elder Lu, this tea is really cheap here. When you go back, bring the tea with you. I know where your mansion is. I will get someone to send the newly fetched spring water over. A refined man should do this kind of thing. It is a waste for a rough person like me to drink this. Lu Gong refused and said, I don't deserve it. No matter how good this tea is, I will feel uneasy. If I feel uneasy, the tea will be tasteless. Then grandfather will give Mr. Du a piece of calligraphy. Fang Yan said with a smile. Grandfather's calligraphy is no worse than Mr. Gong's. Du Qing was overjoyed and said, Then I am really grateful. To be able to receive a gift from old Mr. Liu, this Du is truly fortunate. Lu Gong glanced at Fang Yan, and did not refuse in the end. 3,000 guests of Chunshan, 5 feet south of Shaodu City. 2 lines of large characters appeared on the expensive Xian paper. The ink was full and strong. Lu Kai thought for a moment, then wrote his own signature at the bottom in small script. Du Qing felt as if he had received a treasure. He bowed to Lu Gong again and said, Thank you, Elder Lu, for the calligraphy. I will definitely hang it on the wall. I will study and appreciate it every day. 3,000 guests of Chunshan, 5 feet south of Shaodu City. This was a couplet written by the Secretary General of the outgoing President Li Yuanhong. It described the great Shanghai Du Yuesheng. Du Yuesheng was one of the most famous figures in the Qing gang in modern times. He was known as Huaxia gang boss and Huaxia's #1 gang leader. His life was all-powerful. He was in the business world, the military, the political world and other fields. It could be said that there was no one before him, and no one after him. Just like those ordinary hooligans who idolized Chen Haonan from young and dangerous, Du Qing also had admirers. That was Du Yuesheng, an influential figure from hundreds of years ago. They had the same surname, Du, and both started in the underworld. Who didn't want to become the current Lord Chunshan like Du Yuesheng? It could be said that Lu Gong's couplet vividly expressed his thoughts. It's none of my business, Lu Gong said indifferently. He was not interested in these things at all. Leah, wrap up the tea and give it to Brother Fang Yan. Also, I will personally send Elder Lu's writing fee to your house. After sending off Lu Gong and Fang Yan, Du Qing stood in front of the calligraphy and admired it happily. Leah pushed open the door and walked in. She said, Uncle Du, usually when people give you such expensive gifts, you don't look this happy. Isn't it just a piece of calligraphy? What does a child know? Du Qing said with a smile. Do you know how the former Prime Minister praised Old Man Liu? The Prime Minister's original words were, I am the Prime Minister of the political world, and you are the Prime Minister of the academic world. After thousands of years, the people will forget me, but they will still remember you. The Prime Minister of the academic world. This Prime Minister of the academic world is unyielding, but I've never heard of him giving words to anyone. I can tell that he was unwilling at first. It's just that that fellow surnamed Fang is greedy and lustful, so he asked grandfather to exchange words. Greedy and lustful? Du Qing laughed. This is your evaluation of Fang Yan? That's right. Doesn't he just want our old tree to Hong Pao? His eyes are also constantly looking at Xiao Bai and Xiao Ting's thighs, making me want to dig out his eyeballs. Du Qing shook his head and said, Leah, 1,000 people have 1,000 faces. The reason I let you follow me is to let you learn how to read people. If you don't read people correctly, then the dishes will definitely not be to your liking. This Fang Yan is not as bad as you said. On the contrary, he is a first-class figure. What's so great about him? Leah was a little unconvinced. Leah was the daughter of an old friend of Du Qing's. During a gang conflict, he rushed over to help him block a fatal shot. Du Qing was alive, but his old friend was dead. From then on, Leah became Du Qing's adopted daughter. He didn't have any children of his own, so he completely treated Leah as the successor of his Azure Cloud group. Therefore, when he had time, he was willing to teach her more things. In my eyes, he is even cuter than Old Man Liu, Du Qing said. Some people, because they are mythical, it is difficult for us mortals to get close to them. Everyone knows Lu Mang's personality, so no one can do anything to him. They can only respect him. However, if you are too stubborn, you will break easily. Lu Mang's personality is destined to be a loner. However, how can a person not have friends in this society? Lu Gong is a cultured person. He can endure loneliness, and even enjoy the loneliness brought about by this reputation. However, can others do the same? If Lu Gong rejects my good tea today, then I will no longer have any interactions with him in the future. The corner of Du Qing's mouth carried a hint of a smile, and said, But Fang Yan was able to smooth things over in the middle, allowing me to have a chance to interact with him. I will give him tea, he will give me calligraphy and paintings, and then I will find an opportunity to go to the mansion to give him a brush fee. Wouldn't everyone be familiar with each other? But why are you doing this? Leah asked. Those cultured people always look down on us. Why should we make friends with him? It's not that I want to make friends with Lu Gong. Du Qing laughed. It's Fang Yen who wants to make friends with me. His grandfather could isolate himself from the world, but he couldn't. He doesn't have the face, the scene, or the feelings, but I do. Leah rolled her eyes and said, Why are you men's thoughts so complicated? Isn't it better to just say it out loud? Aren't you afraid of getting dizzy? Du Qing shook his head helplessly and said, There are some words that whoever says it will be at a disadvantage. Du Qing pointed to his head and said, I have to comprehend. After a pause, he smiled with a playful expression and said, Isn't that good? Jiang Julu against the fire above. Flower City has been quiet for a long time. It should be lively now, right? Chapter 54. Lu Gong was a legendary figure in Huaqing's education circle. He was called the Prime Minister of the academic world by the former Prime Minister. He was frequently received by national leaders both at home and abroad. From this, one could see how high his status was. A few decades ago, Huaxia's Guangnan was a weak province in education. Compared to some of the northern provinces with big college entrance exams, the number of students who could get into famous schools could be counted on one's fingers. After Lu Gong returned from studying abroad, he immediately threw himself into the cause of strengthening the education system in Huaxia. He carried out a reform of the education system. He led various channels such as government investment and private donations to raise funds for the education industry. He invited outstanding talents from all over the country and even the world to take up important positions. He successively served as the principal of Huaqing High School, Huaqing Second High School, Third High School, Ninth High School, Guangnan First High School, and Huaxia Normal University High School. He was not greedy for money or power. When he found that someone was more suitable than him for the position of principal, he immediately gave up his position. Rosefinch Secondary's predecessor was Huaqing 29th High School. It was also the school where he served as the last principal. 29th High School was the worst school in Huaqing. Whether it was the school environment or the students' results, it was ranked last. He proposed to reform the school and introduce private funds to build an elite school. The government accepted Lu Zhang's suggestion, and number 29 High changed its name to Vermilion Bird High School. After receiving funding from the outside world, the school's environment was remodeled, and outstanding teachers from society were recruited with generous salaries. After more than 10 years of hard work by countless people, it was finally built into a school that was second to none in Huaqing, or even all of Huaxia. In the past few decades, the education industry in Huaxia had also greatly improved. Every year, there were countless students who got into the top 10 schools in the country. There were also many students who were specially recruited by famous foreign schools. Lu Gong was old and tired. After resigning from his position as principal of Rosefinch High School, he stayed in his old house by the Sparrow River to live out the rest of his life. Rosefinch Secondary later built a new batch of teaching staff rooms and prepared a small courtyard for the school leaders. Lu Gong did not want to move into these new houses. He still lived in the small building he used to live in. Fang Yen followed his grandfather into the courtyard. A kind-looking old lady quickly came out and said with a smile, Fang Yen, you and your grandson went out. You haven't had breakfast, right? I drank a lot of tea, Lu Gong said. Do you have sweet potato porridge? It's still in the pot. I'll cook it for you. No need. Porridge is fine, Lu Gong said. Fang Yen have a bowl too. Fang Yen and Yen. Lu is the old lady. In the past, Fang Yen had always lived in the north, and the old couple rarely had the chance to see him. Now that her grandson had come to work for them, she naturally had to take care of Fang Yan's daily life. Whatever. Lu Gong waved his hand and said. The old lady happily went to stir-fry some side dishes. Fang Yen and Lu Gong sat at the dining table, and each filled a bowl of sweet potato porridge to eat. Grandma's porridge is really good, Fang Yin praised. Lu Gong raised his head and glanced at Fang Yin. He carefully chewed the food in his mouth without saying a word. Fang Yin understood his grandfather's meaning and tactfully shut up. He knew that his grandfather adhered to the habit of not talking while eating or sleeping. When eating, he didn't like to talk or listen to others. Grandma's movements were swift, and she quickly brought out 2 side dishes that went well with the rice. One was lettuces, and the other was stir-fried green beans with meat. Fang Yin ate to his heart's content, and went to get another bowl of porridge. Lu Gong put down his bowl and chopsticks, indicating that he was already full. Fang Yin ate another bowl of appetizers, before putting down his chopsticks in satisfaction. "Follow me to the study," Lu Gong said. After that he stood up and left. "Okay," Fang Yin agreed. "You just dropped the bowl. Why don't you let me sit down and rest?" Grandma complained while cleaning the table. Lu Gong didn't respond. He took Fang Yin to the study on the 2nd floor. Lu Gong's study was 200 square meters, occupying more than half of the entire 2nd floor. The other half was the balcony, where he could sit down and drink tea, smoke, or play 5 animal frolics twice to exercise. Apart from a wooden table and chairs in the study, there were bookshelves everywhere. The bookshelves were filled with books of different sizes and colors. There were rare books from the Ming and Qing dynasties, manuscripts of unofficial history, biographies of famous people, general history of China and the world, poems from the Tang and Song dynasties, philosophy, education, music, and fine arts. Rather than calling it a study, it would be better to call it a small library. What impressed Fang Yin the most was that Lu Gong was not the kind of person who flaunted his knowledge. He deliberately bought these books, and hid them at home, in order to show others that he was knowledgeable. He was a real book lover. He had read most of these books, and even made a lot of comments, and wrote dozens of reading notes in them. The reason why Lu Gong retired early was that he felt neglected by these old friends. Fang Yin didn't have many opportunities to come to the south, and he had only been able to enter his grandfather's study a few times. He looked at the huge study enviously, and reached out to take a thread-bound book called Zhuo Zongtang's Anecdotes from the bookshelf. "Stop!" Lu Gong shouted. Fang Yin quickly withdrew his hand, and looked at Lu Gong in confusion. "Wash your hands first." Lu Gong pointed to the corner and said, "My hands are clean." "That's what you think." Fang Yin smiled bitterly. He had to wash his hands, and wipe them with a white towel before he dared to touch these little treasures. Every book is the author's painstaking effort. You must have respect for words, Lu Gong educated him. "I understand." Fang Yin looked at the romantic history of Lu Sanbian in his hands, and was immediately filled with respect. Lu Gong sat down in front of the desk, and looked at Fang Yin. "Fang Yin, you want to make friends with Du Qing?" "It's not exactly making friends." Fang Yin smiled. He walked in front of Lu Gong and explained, "It's borrowing each other's power. He wants to borrow your power, and I want to borrow his power. Just teach and educate people." "Borrowing power?" Fang Yin smiled bitterly and said, "Grandpa, that's what I thought too. But didn't you see the actual situation? I didn't provoke anyone to be my language teacher, but they did this to me. 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. No matter how strong the boss is, it can't withstand a group attack. There has to be a teammate to help at the critical moment. Even if they don't help, it's fine to stand at the side and shout." Lu Gong pondered and said, "Have you found the person behind the scenes?" "I finally found it," Fang Yin said. "Who is it?" Lu Gong's eyes were sharp as he said coldly. Fang Yin knew his grandfather's stubborn temper. If he knew who the enemy was, he would definitely fight them to the death. He was strict with himself, but he also doted on him. "Grandpa, leave this matter to me," Fang Yin said with a smile. "If you let an old man handle everything, wouldn't it make your grandson seem incompetent?" "Be careful," Lu Gong reminded him. "It's not like before." "I understand," Fang Yin agreed. "Teach and educate people well, and bring out a few good seedlings. I don't expect you to make all the students in your class great. I also know that it's not realistic. However, if you can bring more good students out, you will be making a great contribution to society." Lu Ken tried his best to persuade him. He had been an educator his whole life, so as long as there was a chance he would educate people. This was also the reason why his grandmother had repeatedly asked Fang Yen to stay, but he still insisted on renting a house outside. He wasn't afraid of his grandfather and father who knew martial arts, but he was afraid of his grandfather, who was a scholar, who didn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. I will work hard to learn from you, Grandpa. Fang Yen took the opportunity to flatter him. Lu Gong's expression looked better as he said, I didn't approve of you learning martial arts in the past. In times of peace, what's the point of learning those fighting and killing skills all day? Isn't it enough to practice the 5 animal frolics and do a few rounds of Tai Chi every morning? Reading more is the right way. You will naturally have a scholarly air. You're right, Grandpa. Fang Yen thought of the burning feeling in his dantian again. He knew that he must have been touched by something, or else this wouldn't have happened. He said, Grandpa, you faced so many strong enemies today. It made my blood boil. I admire you. Strong enemies? They're just gangsters. Lu Gong sneered. They are afraid of me. I don't fear them. Du Qing worked his way up from the bottom, so he naturally knew that life wasn't easy. What's in it for them to torture my old bones? If only I could do the same as Grandpa, Fang Yen said with a smile. This sentence wasn't completely flattering, but it also had his true thoughts. When he saw his grandfather proudly say, I know your family is rich and has many disciples. Let's see what you can do to me today. His heart was really touched. Why can't you do it? Lu Gong asked. You've been well-read since you were a child, and your martial arts are superior to your peers. You write well, draw well, know how to play the zither, play the flute. You're smart and observant. You have much more than me and many people. Why can't you do it? Fang Yen looked at his grandfather in surprise. Why did this old man think so highly of him? Because you lack spirit, Lu Gong said seriously. A man can't stand without a soul. The reason why you're a man is not because you're 8 feet tall, but because you have spirit. Napoleon was 5 feet 2 inches tall, but he rode his horse and pointed his sword at the world, becoming a great man of his generation. Fang Yen, you have so many talents. Why can't you get what you want? Spirit. You lack spirit. Fang Yen seemed to be possessed, and his mind kept repeating this sentence. The burning feeling in his dantian became stronger again, as if it was burning a hole in his flesh. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and his face became extremely ugly. Boom! There was a sharp pain in his mind, like fireworks exploding in a galaxy. The sky was full of stars dazzling. Chapter 55. Seeing Fang Yan's strange expression, Lu Gong didn't ask. Instead, he stood up and shouted, Fang Yan, what do you want? What do I want? Fang Yan had a splitting headache. What do I want? What do I want? Do you want the world or the beauty? Do you want to be at the peak of martial arts, or be admired by thousands? Do you want to leave your name in history, or be a teacher? Tell me, what do you want? Fang Yan hadn't thought about it. He had never thought about it. Since he was a child, he had been learning all kinds of skills under the arrangement of his family. Tai Chi, Sanzhou, zither, chess, poetry, painting and tea. When he first sparred with Yi Rou, his only goal in life was to defeat Yi Rou. For this goal, he had worked hard for countless days and nights. However, he didn't know whether it was because he didn't have enough talent or hard work. Year after year, he was defeated by Yi Rou again and again. He couldn't even achieve this only goal. Especially in the last 2 years, his Tai Chi stage didn't improve, but it seemed to be stagnant. Of the 11 stages of Tai Chi, he had originally cultivated to the 4th stage, floating clouds and willow catkins without roots, flying with the vast heaven and earth. For 2 years, his heart didn't understand anything, his strength didn't increase, and his martial arts didn't improve. For the first time in his life, Fang Yen felt panic. This time, he ran away not only to escape the fate of being defeated and humiliated by Yi Rou again, but also to avoid his flaws being exposed in front of others. He was the hope of the Fang family. He didn't want to see everyone disappointed. He was proud. He was as proud as Yi Rou. He had a proud heart, But he was always slapped in the face by Yi Ro. This made him gradually become shameless. However, these were all given to him by others or his family. What do I really want? This was the first time someone asked him this question. And it was also the first time Fang Yin thought about it. In ancient times, there were 3 immortal things called Lida, and Lida. Life is only 100 years, it's gone in a flash. The body dies easily, but the spirit is immortal. Fang Yin, are you going to make a contribution or a statement? Fang Yin looked up at Lu Gong, who was looking at him expectantly. That was the expectation an elder had for a junior. The expectation a family had for their closest relative. This was the expectation that the inheritor of a culture had for the inheritor. Fang Yan's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Lu Gong walked up to Fang Yan, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "No matter what, a person must have a mind. Even if you are a teacher, you must be different from others. You are still young and have a long way to go. Think about it slowly. There's no hurry." "Grandfather." Fang Yin looked up at Lu Gong. Lu Gong was overjoyed. Could it be that after his warning, his grandson Fang Yin had finally decided to give up martial arts and enter the literary world, turning over a new leaf and becoming an educator with ideals and pursuits? If that was really the case, then the Lu and Fang families were really lucky. "I won't do this again," Fang Yin said as if he was making a promise. His expression was solemn, and his voice was extremely heavy. Sitting on the cement bank of the Sparrow River, Fang Yin didn't make a sound for a long time. The burning sensation in his dantian had disappeared, and the pain in his head had also stopped. From the outside, he didn't look any different from before. However, Fang Yin knew that he had changed a lot. His Taiji heart, which Fang Yin thought was dead for a long time, finally began to move again. Although it was extremely slow, he could feel a fine flow of qi. What did Taiji practice? To train the body, the most important thing was to accumulate strength. Training the body was to train strength. Strength was produced by the contraction and relaxation of muscles, and was related to the support of bones. There was an optimal point to exert strength. Moving forward or backward by an inch would result in a different amount of strength. In real life, there were weights, dumbbells, push-ups, and other physical exercises. Those that trained muscles were all training physical strength. Strength was the flow of qi. In order to achieve a certain goal, the movement of the body and energy were called strength. If a move was a combination of a body with a purpose, then strength was a combination of qi with a purpose. For example, in the movies, 2 people would punch and kick each other, or slash each other with a knife and a sword. That was a move. However, when Xiaofeng stood still and waved his hands, suddenly, a huge white dragon roared and rushed toward his opponent. That was the 18 dragons subduing palms, formed by the combination of strength and qi. From the special effect, it could be seen that strength and qi were of a higher level than strength. Fang Yin was born in a Taiji family, so he had a deep understanding of the differences between strength, and qi. The Taiji heart was a circle formed by qi in the dantian. It couldn't be seen or touched, but it could be clearly felt. The circle of qi rotated freely, and thousands of threads flowed into the 360 acupoints and 84,000 pores in the body. It was very comfortable. It was a gas station that supplied qi to every meridian and acupoint in the body. 3 years ago, Fang Yin discovered the Taiji heart. 2 years later, the Taiji heart was still. Now it had finally come back to life. Fang Yin was so excited that he wanted to shout and yell to vent. If he hadn't discovered that his Taiji heart had disappeared, he wouldn't have done such a shameful thing as running away from home. Of course, it was a blessing in disguise. He hadn't been out for long, but after hearing what his grandfather, Lu Gong, said, he activated the Taiji heart again. Why? In Fang Yan's heart, he found the answer that he couldn't figure out. "You lack spirit," his grandfather said. This sentence pointed to Fang Yan's heart. Could it be that people needed spirit, and so did Taiji? Only when people had spirit would they have a soul. And when Taiji had spirit? Yes, when Taiji had spirit, it had qi. Fang Yin was suddenly enlightened, and he couldn't help but want to praise himself for being a genius. But when he remembered that he promised his grandfather that he wouldn't do anything stupid again, he could only suppress this impulse in his heart, and secretly gave himself a thumbs up to comfort himself. "Hey!" A girl's voice came from behind. Fang Yen turned around and saw Qin Yitian in a white school uniform standing in the grass under the ginkgo tree. The leaves and grass were covered with dew, crystal clear and crisp, like a young and beautiful girl. Fang Yen looked at Qin Yitian in surprise and asked, "Qin Yitian, why don't you go to class again?" "I'm waiting for the language class in the afternoon." Qin Yitian smiled. She patted the white bag on her shoulder and said, "Look, I even brought a raincoat." After school yesterday, Fang Yen gave the students a task. They must bring raincoats to class today. There was a light rain in the morning, but it stopped now. But the sky was still gloomy, and the clouds were very low. It seemed that it would rain again in the afternoon. "Don't you have to go to other teachers' classes?" Fang Yen said angrily. "Skipping class is bad behavior. It will bring a bad influence to other students." "Is that so?" Qin Yitian tilted his head and thought for a while, then said, "So what? Do I need to be responsible for the lives of every student in the class? They see you as their idol. So I have to follow the rules, not be late, not skip class, listen carefully, take notes, and be a role model? If that's the case, am I still the Qin Yitian that they liked before?" Qin Yitian said proudly, "The reason why I am Qin Yitian is that I can do whatever I want and want whatever I want. I'm just being myself, and there's no need to change myself." Fang Yen shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "You are really not likable. You will like it." Qin Yitian looked at Fang Yen and said very seriously, "Even if you don't like it now, it doesn't matter, because we still have a long time. Men looking for another partner is no different from animals looking for a mate. They will find the one who has the same smell. Why do I have to like you? To satisfy your bad taste? It's not like that." Qin Yitian took off the other earphone on his right ear, shook his hair to make it more supple, and said, "I think you are a very interesting person, and so am I. If we are together, will it be more interesting?" "I don't think I deserve you," Fang Yen said. These days, it was popular to give people a good person card. When you didn't like someone, you could say, "You are a good person, but I don't think I deserve you." Not only did you reject the other person, but you also made the other person feel that you were superior. That's right. Fang Yen was rejecting Qin Yitian. He wanted to make the other person retreat, so that even if she was rejected by him, she wouldn't hold a grudge. "Listen, I don't deserve you, so I belittle myself to raise you. What else do you have to say? If you say that I have no conscience, do you still have a conscience?" "It's true." Qin Yitian nodded and said, "But I will give you more time and more opportunities. There are 2 fires in your name, but they are 2 dead fires. I think I will have the opportunity to ignite them, right?" Fang Yen. "What? Do you have time?" "What? Go shopping with me." "What?" Qin Yitian smiled and said, "It seems that all the couples in the world like to go shopping. I was wondering, what kind of feeling is this?" Fang Yan's curiosity was also aroused, and he said, "Indeed. It's boring to go shopping alone. If 2 people go shopping, will there be any difference? Can we get a discount when we eat and buy things? Oh, the merchants really know how to do business." Chapter 56. Today was really not a good day to go shopping. The sky was dark, and the clouds were getting lower and lower. The cold wind blew on his body, and his hair and face were unconsciously soaked by the sporadic rain falling from the sky. There were no bright smiles blooming in the sun, no suspenders showing beautiful collarbones and slender necks, no beautiful legs wrapped in black stockings. Oh, there were a few beautiful women who were not afraid of the cold and insisted on bringing benefits to people. Fang Yen sincerely admired them in his heart. They didn't travel because of the long journey, they didn't fall in love because they were hurt, and they didn't wear black stockings because the weather was cold. These behaviors were all hooligans. Because of the weather, there were few people on the pedestrian street today. Fang Yen, who was wearing a black buttonless Chinese tunic suit, and Qin Yitian, who was wearing a white school uniform and blue trousers, walked side by side, very eye-catching. Fang Yin was delicate and handsome, and he always had a smile on his face when he walked. He raised his head slightly, looking quite proud, as if he had just beaten Yi Ruru hard, instead of being beaten by Yi Ruru and running away from home. Qin Tian was like a lotus flower in clear water, without any makeup. But that face without makeup gave people a soul-stirring beauty. She had shoulder-length hair and a slender figure. What was more outstanding was her temperament, walking in the crowd like a queen inspecting her subjects. She didn't say anything, didn't do anything, just walked on quietly. However, everyone couldn't help but cast their eyes on her. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Probably this was the scene they were talking about. Because of the lack of business, many salespeople and owners of stores were looking out. There was surprise and envy in their eyes. But most of them were admiration. That girl is so beautiful. Like a fairy in a painting. The boy is also very handsome, but the clothes he is wearing are too old-fashioned. If he changed into our new sweatshirt, it would be more matching. It was just a simple matter of a man taking a girl out for a walk, but it had become the material and seasoning of their discussion. Qin Tian was very tall, almost reaching Fang Yan's chin. Fortunately, she was tall. Otherwise, she would not have been able to control her innate aura of supremacy. I really don't know what's so great about her, Fang Yan thought to himself. Just because she's pretty, strong, and good at her studies, she can be so arrogant? If that's the case, shouldn't I write a sign around my neck with the words "I am teacher Qin Tian"? Fang Yan written in red? Did Fang Yan do that? No. Therefore, Mr. Fang was actually a very low-key man. As they walked, Qin Tian suddenly handed his white handbag to Fang Yan. Fang Yan looked at her in confusion and asked, "Why?" The boys seemed to give the girls their backpacks, Qin Tian said, pointing at the few couples on the street. Fang Yan studied it carefully. It was exactly the same as what Qin Tian said. The girls were shopping happily, and the boys were carrying female bags, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Must it be like this? Fang Yan asked. Qin Tian did not answer. She looked at Fang Yan and nodded lightly. Her smile was faint, indifferent, and elegant. Ba ba ba. Fang Yan quickly spat in his heart. What's wrong with me? Why do I always think of words like noble, elegant, and tall when I'm around this girl? What's so elegant about a smile? I'm being cheap. Fang Yan scolded himself in his heart. I must stay true to myself. I can't be easily bewitched by this little fairy, little witch. Fang Yan took Qin Tian's white bag and carried it on his shoulder. He looked at it carefully and was happy. This bag matched him quite well. When they walked to the door of a Hong Kong-style fishball restaurant, Qin Tian stopped again. Hungry? Fang Yan asked. No. Qin Tian shook his head. Then what do you want to do? Qin Tian pointed at the couples who were lining up and said, It seems that they all like to eat this. You go and line up too. Fang Yan and Qin Tian, each holding a bowl of fish balls in their hands, stood at the door of an Italian restaurant. Fang Yan chewed the hot fish balls and asked, Miss, can we go in and eat together? Is there a discount? The waitress nodded with a smile and said, Sir, our restaurant is having a promotion. Today is the last day. If 2 people eat, one of them will get a 50% discount. Fang Yan and Qin Tian looked at each other and thought that these businessmen really knew how to do business. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Fang Yan went to the washroom. When he came back, Qin Tian was paying the bill with his card. Fang Yan said reproachfully, This kind of thing should be done by a man. How can I let a girl pay the bill? Where do you want me to put my face? The waitress looked at Fang Yan with appreciation and thought that this man was very good. You don't have money like me. Qin Tian signed her name on the receipt printed out by the POS machine, without hesitation. Fang Yan felt a pain in his chest, as if he had been stabbed by a knife. He felt that he had completely lost face this time. Therefore, the waitress looked at Fang Yan with eyes full of contempt. After the meal, Fang Yan accompanied Qin Tian to continue shopping. Passing by the door of a shop called Jiangnan Silk and Satin Shop, Fang Yan took the initiative to stop. Qin Tian looked up at the name of the shop, and then looked at the Chong Sam and silk scarves sold inside. He understood, and a faint smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Let's go in and have a look? Fang Yin said with a smile. You treat me to dinner, and I'll buy you a small gift. Okay. Qin Etian readily agreed. Welcome. The staff of the silk and satin shop were all wearing tang suits, and the women were all wearing cheongsam, which looked quite retro. A saleswoman greeted them and asked with a smile, Sir, miss, please feel free to look around. We have a lot of new styles in our shop. Fang Yin looked around and said, I want to buy a cheongsam for my friend. Is there a suitable one? The saleswoman had already seen Qin Etian beside Fang Yin. Such a beautiful girl could not be ignored by men and women. She said, why not? To be honest, I haven't seen a woman with more temperament than this lady. She looks good in any clothes. Then let's go out and buy a set of sportswear? Fang Yin joked. No, no, no. The saleswoman knew that she had said the wrong thing and quickly asked them to stay. This lady, call her a girl. She is still a student. Fang Yin corrected her. Okay, this girl, her temperament is so good that she looks good in any clothes. However, the cheongsam in our shop can have a kind of icing on the cake effect on her. If she goes out in our cheongsam, she will definitely be charming, and the number of people turning their heads will be hundreds of times. How do you calculate the number of hundreds of times? Some people turn their heads several times. The saleswoman said with a smile. Who doesn't want to see such a beautiful girl a few more times? Choose one, Fang Yin said. I'm not very good at this kind of thing. Okay, this is our new style. Fang Yin stood still and said, we want to see the classic style. The saleswoman quickly looked at Fang Yan's expression. She despised him in her heart, but she said happily, Sir, you really have good taste. The classic style will never go out of style. Moreover, we are having a discount on the classic style. One piece is 15% off. Buy two get one free. Fang Yin waved his hand and said, It's not about money. Choose the clothes. You make it sound like you are very poor. Fang Yin thought in his heart. He looked at the name of the shop again, and secretly remembered it. He thought that he would never come again. No problem. The saleswoman carefully looked at Qin Etian's appearance and said, This lotus root white one with a peony embroidered on it is very good. It is very suitable for the girl's noble temperament. No. Qin Etian directly refused. This Awe of the Phoenix is selling very well. Too complicated. What about this one? This pattern of a spirit bird announcing good news was also very popular among young girls nowadays. They all say it is very festive. No connotation. To be honest, if it wasn't for the promotion of sales, the saleswoman would have gone crazy. Young miss, why are you so difficult to please? Aren't you just buying a stagnant product that is on sale at the end of the season? Do you have to be so picky? You don't need to change clothes. Just change your boyfriend. If you change your boyfriend, I can take you to the boutique area. Fang Yan's eyes were also looking around. He took a small white floral cheongsam from the corner and gave it to Qin Etian. He asked, How about this one? Qin Etian smiled and said, Okay. So, Qin Etian took the cheongsam and went in to change clothes. The saleswoman secretly rolled her eyes several times with her partner. She thought that it was not the clothes she chose that were not good, but the person she chose was wrong. Choosing clothes is also a skill. Fang Yin said to the saleswoman, Her temperament is elegant, so you can't use more elegant clothes to match her. She is just a student. It's not like she is going to walk on the red carpet in Hollywood. Why does she need to be so dazzling? Especially that Awe of the Phoenix. Not only did it ruin the clothes, but it also ruined the person. You are right. I didn't expect it, the saleswoman said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable about clothing matching. Because I see a lot of people. Fang Yin said with a smile. I knew you don't like me. The wooden door of the changing room opened. Qin Etian, who was wearing a floral cheongsam, stood in front of Fang Yin. Fang Yan's pupils dilated. He hurriedly wondered if he had forgotten something important. Oh, it was a heartbeat. Chapter 57. The sky was dark, and it was drizzling. The walls were white, and the roof tiles were gray. Moss crawled up the walls, and the Boston creeper crawled out of the courtyard to look at the new world outside. The wooden door was old and peeling, but the copper lock had been polished to a shiny shine due to the passage of time. In this remote and narrow alley, there were usually very few people passing by here. Only a few old residents walked in and out. Occasionally, a photographer with a unique eye would bring a girl in a white dress over to take artistic photos, and then take her to a room to have sex. However, today there was a large crowd gathered in this alley. 40 students in raincoats stood in this alley, chatting and laughing in groups of 2 or 3. The line stretched infinitely, and it looked quite lively and spectacular. 2:30 p.m. It was the time for classes at Rosefinch Secondary. A student looked at his watch and said, "Huang Haoran, why isn't Mr. Fong here yet? It's almost time for class." "That's right. He asked you to bring us here. So why isn't he here yet?" "Don't worry, everyone. Mr. Fong must have gone to borrow a boat. Didn't he borrow a boat at Sparrow River last time?" "Li Hao, are you crazy? This isn't Sparrow River. Where did Mr. Fong go to borrow a boat? Where did he come from if he borrowed a boat?" "I'm just joking. You really don't have a sense of humor." Huang Haoran frowned slightly, hesitating if he should give Mr. Fong another call to urge him. Zhang Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao had also come to class today, because they really couldn't take any more days off. Moreover, if they kept taking days off, even if Fong Yin couldn't control them, they would have already lost the war. However, they had learned their lesson and didn't rashly say anything to start a war. Chen Tao took out a cigarette and smoked it, then took the initiative to light it for Zhang Guodong. He said sarcastically, "I wonder what this idiot is up to this time. Maybe it's a surprise?" Zhang Guodong laughed coldly. "In any case, we'll just follow the plan we discussed. We won't take the initiative to provoke him in order to avoid giving him something to use against us." This time, even Zhang Xiaofeng, that old fellow, stood up to protect him. "Even my father is not very easy to talk to. However, if you don't court death, you won't die. With this guy's personality, sooner or later, he'll help us catch him. At that time, we'll kill him in one strike and chase him away." Zhang is right. Li Yang agreed. "Let's just watch from the sidelines and wait for him to make a mistake." "Didn't I already make a mistake?" Chen Tao chuckled. "It's class time, but the teacher is nowhere to be seen. Do you think we should report this to the school? As the class monitor of Class 9, I should make a phone call to the Academic Affairs Office." Zhang Guodong said proudly, as he took out his phone from his pocket and prepared to dial. "Mr. Fong is here," someone in front exclaimed. Then, a group of people rushed in the direction where Fong Yin came from. Just now, Zhang Guodong and the other 2 were still standing in the middle of the crowd. In the blink of an eye, half of the alley was only left with the 3 of them standing there alone. The 3 of them felt a little sad in their hearts. It seemed that they had been separated from the majority of the people. Zhang, Li Yang looked at Zhang Guodong with an embarrassed expression. Now they were faced with a dilemma. If they joined in, they would feel very embarrassed. If they insisted, not only them, but probably all the students would feel embarrassed. "I'm the class monitor. I still have to maintain discipline," Zhang Guodong said. Yes, that's it," Li Yang said with a smile. Fong Yin looked at the smiles on the students' faces and knew that they were happy and looking forward to the 2 classes today. This was the effect he wanted. If the students wanted to learn and were willing to learn, there was no need to worry about their grades. "Huang Haoran, is everyone here?" Fong Yin asked. "There are 41 people in the class. Qini Tian isn't here yet," Huang Haoran said. "He didn't ask for leave either." "Yes," Fong Yin nodded. "Qini Tian will be here in a while." Since Qini Tian had already asked for leave from Fong Yin, Huang Haoran had nothing else to say. Fong Yin looked at everyone with a smile and asked, "Now you should know which text we're going to learn today, right?" "Alley in the Rain." All the students shouted in unison. They were learning Farewell to Cambridge again on the Sparrow River. It was raining today, and they were brought to this old alley by the language class representative. How could they not know which text they were going to learn today? "That's right. Today we're going to learn Alley in the Rain," Fang Yin said with a smile. We've learned farewell to Cambridge again earlier, so everyone should have a basic understanding of modern poetry. I've also let everyone try to compose a poem, and quite a few of you wrote quite well. Today, let's strike while the iron is hot, and continue to deepen everyone's impression and feeling of poetry. Teacher, are you going to read us a poem? A student asked. Yes, reading in this alley in the rain. It feels so good. Mr. Fang, you're so cool. You surprise us every time. Fang Yin waved his hand and said, Show everyone keep quiet. All the students held their breath, knowing that teacher Fang Yin was about to start the class. Fang Yin combed his hair, making it look even messier. Then, he borrowed a pair of black-rimmed glasses from a male student and put them on the bridge of his nose, making him look more artistic. Bang! He opened the oil paper umbrella in his hand and raised it to cover his head. Fang Yin held the umbrella and walked to the middle of the alley. He looked into the distance and softly recited, holding the oil paper umbrella alone. Wandering for a long, long time. And a lonely alley in the rain. I hope to meet a girl like a lilac, a girl with a grudge. Clack, clack, clack. A girl wearing a white cheapao with floral patterns slowly walked over. Her long hair was coiled up on top of her head, and the red high heels on her feet tapped on the stone path, producing a clear and melodious sound. Heavens, there's really a lilac girl. That's Qini Tian, it's Qini Tian. Oh my god, Qini Tian is so beautiful. She's so beautiful. My goddess. Even Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao were excited. Zheng Guodong grinned and said, Fortunately we're here. Otherwise we wouldn't be able to see Qini Tian. Shu. Huang Haoren was the class representative of the Chinese department. He had the responsibility to maintain class discipline. Now that the students were disturbing teacher Fang Yan's class, he could only stand up and remind everyone to keep quiet. Seeing Huang Haoren's action, the students immediately fell silent. Zheng Guodong opened his mouth, but he finally swallowed the words he wanted to say. He was afraid of causing public anger, and even more afraid of incurring the wrath of the goddess. He was also a pursuer and admirer of Qini Tian. Fang Yin was more and more satisfied with Huang Haoren. He thought to himself, I'll hold an election in a few days to promote Huang Haoren as the class representative of the Chinese department. It would be great if I could remove Zheng Guodong as the class monitor. As the class monitor, he didn't fulfill his responsibilities as a class monitor. Instead, he brought about an extremely negative impact on the class. Unfortunately, Fang Yin isn't the class monitor, so he can't decide the appointment of the class monitor. I'm the descendant of Fang's Tai Chi, but I can't decide the appointment of the class monitor, a small student official. There doesn't seem to be any connection between the two, right? The alley quieted down again. Only the sound of wind and rain, as well as the tapping of high heels on the ground, could be heard. Qini Tian, who was holding an oil paper umbrella, got closer and closer. Her simple, elegant, and beautiful face became more and more refreshing. In the past, Qini Tian always wore a school uniform and casual clothes. She was straightforward and simple. Other than the occasional baseball cap on her head, she had almost no ornaments on her body. But even so, she was still beautiful, elegant, and one of a kind. Qini Tian, no matter where she stood alone, she was a queen. She stood with a group of people, but she was still a queen. It was the first time they saw Qini Tian wearing a cheongsam. It was the first time they saw her coiled her long hair on top of her head, revealing her slender swan-like neck. It was the first time they saw her showing off her tall and curvy figure. It was also the first time they saw her wearing red high heels that seemed to be able to step into the depths of one's soul. When Fang Yin saw Qini Tian wearing a cheongsam for the first time, he felt his heart skip a beat. These boys had even worse self-control. Their eyes were fixed on her, and some students didn't even realize that they were drooling. Isn't she too beautiful? They thought in their hearts. Fang Yan's voice pulled them back to reality in time. He recited with anticipation and affection, She has the color of lilacs. So, all the students looked at Qini Tian's color. In the hazy smoke, she walked over gracefully like a goddess. No, she was a goddess. The fragrance of lilacs. Although they didn't smell it, no one would deny that Qin Etienne had the fragrance of lilacs. Oh, it was even more fragrant than lilacs. The sadness of lilacs. Qin Etienne's face was expressionless as she walked with her umbrella in hand. However, at this time and place in this situation, they all felt that Qin Etienne was indeed sad and lonely. She was so excellent and had no friends. How could she not be lonely? Sorrowful in the rain. Sorrowful and hesitant. Qin Etienne walked towards Fang Yan, and the two walked forward face to face. The girl floated past me. She silently went far, far away. To the decadent fence. Walked through this rainy alley. Qin Etienne and Fang Yan brushed past each other. The two didn't speak, didn't nod to greet each other, and didn't make eye contact. The two strangers in the vast sea of people met by fate, but they didn't know each other. As the high heels walked further and further away, Fang Yan couldn't help but turn around and look. Her expression was confused, and her eyes were sad. It's like a sad love story, a girl said in a low voice, her eyes red. Chapter 58. Poetry emphasized artistic conception. In a classroom filled with white walls, blackboard tables and chairs, and the stench of sweat and feet permeated the air. Shaking one's head and reciting. Was there any artistic conception? Definitely not. This was perfunctory. The teacher perfunctory the students, and the students perfunctory the teacher. They might write down who the author of the poem was, what era it was written in, and the specific historical environment. They also knew that the lilac-like girl symbolized the girl, and the yearning for a better life. However, the artistic beauty of the poem itself was ignored. Now Fang Yan did the opposite. I won't introduce the author to you, and I won't ask you to write down the year he was born and died. You won't even mention a word about what the poem symbolizes, or what the author's feelings are. I'm just reading the poem to you, so that you know what kind of poem it is. We put aside all the complicated things, and just enjoy the poem. Obviously, the effect of this was very significant. All the students were deeply moved by this scene. They remembered this rainy alley, that they didn't even know the name of. They remembered Fang Yan and Qin Etienne walking face to face and brushing shoulders. They remembered the sadness in Fang Yan's eyes when he looked back. The saddest love in the world was when you fell in love with her at first sight, and then she turned around and disappeared. On the bus, in the airport, in the bookstore, in the tourist area, in a strange city or on a street. Have you ever met such a person? Have you ever felt this kind of regret? You practiced Taoism for 500 years, only to exchange for a passing love. Isn't this kind of thing too cruel? Many female students cried. They were completely immersed in the sadness of never seeing each other again in the poem. They were young and lively, but also emotionally fragile. They longed for perfection, and firmly believed that lovers would get married. Someone shouted, "Mr. Fang, hurry up and catch up with her. Ask for her name, ask for her phone number." The boys were also very depressed. They wanted to express something, but they couldn't say anything. Such a simple story, and it wasn't a life and death parting. How could it make people feel so sad? Fang Yan stood where he was, and did not say anything. He only waited quietly. The students needed time to memorize and digest. He knew that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, more than 10 years, perhaps when their hair had turned white, and they could only eat soup, this scene would still appear in their minds. Life is short. How many times can we go out? How many people can we love? And how many beautiful sceneries can we experience? What reason do they have not to remember it? Cluck. Dong. Dong. The sound of high heels tapping on the stone floor rang again. Qin Etienne had returned with the oil paper umbrella. A girl cried out in surprise. "Miss Lilac is back." He was too deeply poisoned because he was too obsessed. Because of Fang Yan's unique teaching method, they all fell in love with the story Rainy Alley. Just like how you would want to know a celebrity's height, 3 measurements, what kind of food she eats, and what color underwear she wears. Even without Fang Yan's reminder, they would also search for information about the author and the poem. Only in this way could they understand the essence of the article more clearly and deeply. This was the difference between active learning and passive learning. This was also the difference between an ordinary teacher and an ultimate teacher. A great person would definitely wear special shoes and not walk the common path. Qin Etienne walked in front of Fang Yan, stared at him with bright eyes and said, "You owe me another favor. We're all classmates, there's no need to say that I owe you." Fang Yan chuckled and waved his hand. "You're treating me like an outsider. I want to be the female lead, not the same as this Qipao." Qin Etienne laughed. "It's just a prop." In broad daylight, he actually dared to openly confess to a good teacher. This was simply too much. Fang Yan was so angry that he laughed at Qin Etienne. "How is this a prop?" Fang Yan explained. "This is a performance. I'm the poet, you're Miss Lilac. If you're a prop, then wouldn't I be a prop too? I'm Qin Etienne. I know. You're just temporarily Miss Lilac. The character you're playing is Miss Lilac. Just like when you rehearsed the play Romeo and Juliet before, you played Juliet. We did this because of love and interest, right?" "No," Qin Etienne said. Fang Yan felt that this girl was really difficult to communicate with. It seemed that he had to make a suggestion to the school to teach interpersonal skills from middle school. "I rehearsed the play Romeo and Juliet because I like this story," Qin Etienne said with a serious face. "I wore the Qipao as Miss Lilac because I like you." "I don't believe it. How do you prove it?" "You play Miss Lilac 40 times and pass by every student in class 9. Fang Yan shamelessly made a shameless request. After saying that, he was so ashamed that he couldn't lower his head. Because when he looked down, he could see Qin Etienne was staring at him with wide eyes. "Okay." Qin Etienne actually nodded and agreed. "I promise you, not because I'm stupid, just because I really like to do some things for you. How about 20 times? Fang Yan found his conscience and took the initiative to reduce the number. "No, 40 times. Qin Etienne insisted. "You want me to be a prop, and I want you to remember me." Holding an oil paper umbrella, alone wandering in a long, lonely alley, I hope to meet a girl like Lilac. A lilac girl. Cluck, cluck, cluck. Qin Etienne holding an oil paper umbrella slowly walked over. The scene was so beautiful that it was intoxicating. The boy's pupils dilated, the muscles on his cheeks trembled, and his hands loosened and clenched. His mouth squirmed, but no sound came out. "Yi Xiang, hurry up and recite," someone urged. Yi Xiang's face turned red, and he said with a sad face, "Teacher, I forgot my lines." Fang Yan smiled, thinking that he also made a mistake. This Miss Lilac was too beautiful, and affected the student's performance. "I won't make such a mistake next time." "Next," Fang Yan said. Because time was limited, everyone only had one chance. He hoped that everyone could grasp it well. But if someone really couldn't grasp it well, Fang Yan didn't know what to say to them. Yi Xiang handed the oil paper umbrella in her hand to the next student, and Qin Etienne once again held an oil paper umbrella and walked out from another entrance of the alley. She approached silently. As she approached, her eyes cast a breathless gaze. "Next," Fang Yan shouted. Number 1 began, number 40 ended. Qin Etienne was number 41 of class 9. Wearing high-heeled shoes and holding an oil paper umbrella, she walked from one end of the alley to the other, and from the other end to the other end, while the poet was reciting the poem. She was as fresh as a poem, and as beautiful as a painting. Every time someone recited a poem, she walked with the umbrella. No rest, no pause. It was as if she didn't know fatigue. Her expression was as calm as ever. Her movements were as elegant as ever, and her long hair was neatly coiled on top of her head. It was still the same the first time she walked. The lilac girl in the poem had only brushed shoulders with the poet once, but Qin Etienne had walked 37 times. Fang Yan couldn't help but shout for Qin Etienne to stop a few times. But Qin Etienne refused. If they wanted all the students to have a chance to recite a poem during class time, they had to cherish every minute and second. Moreover, the students really hoped to have a chance to recite a poem. They were eager, just like rowing a boat in the Sparrow River to recite a poem. This was the learning method they were looking forward to. In the decay of the rain dispelled her color, dispelled her fragrance. "Next," Fang Yan shouted. Qin Etienne walked for the 38th time. The girl floated past me. She silently walked away, far away. Next, Fang Yin shouted. Qin Yitian walked for the 39th time. My hope floated past a girl like lilac, a girl with a heart full of sorrow. Number 40. This was the last student in the class. Except for Qin Yitian himself. Qin Yitian stopped and stood under the eaves with the umbrella in the rainy alley. She was slim and elegant, even more beautiful than the lilac girl in the poem. Fang Yin was moved by Qin Yitian. All the students were moved by Qin Yitian. Qin Yitian, Qin Yitian, Qin Yitian. They shouted Qin Yitian's name loudly, their passionate voices breaking the silence of the rainy alley. The cold wind rustled, but everyone felt as though there was a fire in their hearts. Qin Yitian, thank you. A girl ran over and said, Thank you so much. Senior Yitian, you're amazing. Goddess, you're our goddess. Fang Yin waved his hand and said, It's time for school to end. Let's go home. Roar, the playful students shouted and ran away. More students ran over to say goodbye to Fang Yin and Qin Yitian before leaving. The figures and voices faded away. Only Fang Yin and Qin Yitian were left in the alley. Have they all left? Qin Yitian asked. Yes, Fang Yin said. Qin Yitian's knees went soft, and she was about to fall to the ground. She really couldn't take it anymore. Fang Yin was quick. He leaned forward and reached out with both hands to pick up Qin Yitian's body that was about to fall to the ground and held her in his arms. Warm and fragrant. Her breath smelled like orchids. Looking at Qin Yitian's face, Fang Yin felt that this was really a test for him. But she was his student. Fang Yin quickly looked away. Qin Yitian smiled and said, I'm not a prop. I'm the female lead. Chapter 59. In the milk tea shop, Fang Yin took off the high heels on Qin Yitian's feet. The small feet, as white as snow and as tender as a new lotus root, appeared in front of him. If it were not for the red and swollen side of the little toe and the worn skin on the heel, there would be almost no flaws. Fang Yin said guiltily, Does it hurt? Yes. Why didn't you say it earlier? I said it, Qin Yitian said. When did I say it? Fang Yin asked. He asked Qin Yitian to rest several times, but Qin Yitian still insisted on walking 40 times. I said I don't want to be a prop. I just want you to remember me. Qin Yitian pointed to his feet and said, Did that give me extra points? No. Fang Yin pretended to be angry and said. Qin Yitian smiled and said, You still got extra points. Otherwise, you would have left long ago. Fang Yin put the high heels on the leg of the chair and said, I told you to wear stockings at the time, but you didn't listen. Otherwise, how could your feet be rubbed like this? Qin Yitian curled his lips and said, Were the earthy yellow stockings you asked for, or the lilac girl in the poem? I also said you could wear black. Then you're still an auntie, Qin Yitian said. When I wear a cheongsam, I absolutely can't wear stockings. This is a woman's principle of dressing, and I can't violate it. Then you suffer, Fang Yin said. Sit down and wait for a while. I'll go buy you some medicine to rub on. Don't let the wound get inflamed. Qin Yitian smiled and said, Go and come back quickly. You can't run away. Am I that kind of person? Fang Yin was angry. Fang Yin bought medicine and cotton cloth in the pharmacy. When he returned to the milk tea shop, he found that Qin Yitian was surrounded by a group of students in school uniforms. Senior Sister Yitian, is Rosefinch High School fun? I also want to take the Rosefinch exam in the future. Senior Sister Yitian, do you live here? Your house is here too. We are neighbors after all. Senior Sister Yitian, I'll treat you to some milk tea. Qin Yitian answered with a smile, and quickly wrote something with his hands. When Fang Yin got closer, he realized that she was signing autographs for her fans. Wherever this girl went, she was the center of attention. She wasn't a star, but she could always enjoy the treatment of a big star. After Qin Yitian signed the last copy, he handed the pen and the autograph books to a young girl in front of him and said, Okay, my friend is here. When the girls saw Fang Yin standing at the periphery, they immediately giggled and asked, Senior Sister Yitian, is he your boyfriend? I'm Qin Yitian's teacher. Fang Yin quickly explained. He didn't want these students to misunderstand. Wow! The girls were full of envy. Senior sister Etienne has hooked up with the teacher. That's amazing. What the hell is going on? Fang Yen was quite speechless. Qin Etienne waved his hand and said, "Goodbye." "Bye, Senior Etienne." The girls waved at Qin Etienne and left with their cups of milk tea in their hands. When they left, they would look at Fang Yen and Qin Etienne from time to time. "Are they from number 1 middle school?" Fang Yen asked. "Number 7 middle school," Qin Etienne said. "He's really famous," Fang Yen said. Huang Haoran previously said that Qin Etienne had been famous since junior high school and was the idol of countless people. Now it seemed that it was true. Fang Yen opened the cap of the potion and squatted down to carefully apply the potion on Qin Etienne's red and swollen feet. Hiss! Qin Etienne shrunk her feet back. She had never been injured before. She was afraid of pain. Fang Yen looked up at Qin Etienne and said teasingly, "Qin Etienne also has something that she's afraid of? Doesn't Fang Yen have it too?" "I do. What are you afraid of?" "Yi Ro." Qin Etienne's eyes narrowed slightly and said, "It sounds like a girl's name. Fang Yen, do I need to treat her as my competitor?" After sending off Qin Etienne, Fang Yen stood at the intersection, feeling lost. This was the intersection where Fang Yen had rented Sister Li's house. The familiar street, the familiar intersection, the familiar steamed bun shop, and the black girl who was selling steamed buns. Fang Yen accidentally found the old alley when he was walking in this area. So when he saw from the weather forecast that it would rain today, he immediately told his students to bring raincoats to class. Qin Etienne wanted him to accompany him to go shopping, and he happened to remember that he needed a girl. So the two hit it off. He accompanied Qin Etienne to go shopping, and Qin Etienne didn't raise any objection when she knew that he gave her the cheongsam for another purpose. Fang Yen was not stupid, and Qin Etienne was even smarter. She not only promised to be Fang Yan's model, but she was also willing to be a model for all 40 students in the class. Since she wanted Fang Yen to owe her a favor, she would make this favor bigger. This girl. Fang Yen smiled bitterly. He thought that with his handsome and profound knowledge, he would definitely be liked and favored by girls. However, he had never thought of developing a relationship with his student. She is still a child, Fang Yen thought in his heart. Of course, a child with a mature mind. Fang Yen thought of another girl. He thought of the girl who cried and shouted that it was all his fault when he left with his bag. I hope everything is fine with her, Fang Yen thought in his heart. Teacher Fang Yen. A clear voice rang in his ear. Fang Yen turned around and saw Jiang Qin in his school uniform and carrying a bag at the bus stop not far away. He was looking at him with a surprised expression. Fang Yen smiled bitterly. He was thinking of Chow Chow. And here he was. Was Chow Chow doing track and field? He ran really fast. Jiang Qin quickly rushed toward Fang Yen, the bag on his shoulder swaying left and right, as if it would fall at any time. Mr. Fang, why are you here? Jiang Qin stood in front of Fang Yen. His eyes curved into a beautiful crescent, and his eyes were full of smiles. I brought my student here for class, Fang Yen said. Class? Jiang Qin looked confused. However, he quickly pushed this question aside and said, Then are you standing here waiting for me? Not really. Can you come to my house for dinner? I will ask my mother to cook something delicious for you, Jiang Qin said and reached out to pull Fang Yan's arm. Jiang Qin. Fang Yan stood still. No matter how hard Jiang Qin tried, he couldn't move. Fang Yan looked at the girl's blushing face with heartache and said softly, It's not convenient today. When is it convenient? Jiang Qin grabbed Fang Yan's arm and refused to let go. She looked up at Fang Yan. When do you say it is convenient? Jiang Qin. Fang Yan didn't know how to explain the current situation. Adults have adult considerations and scruples, but some words can't be said too clearly to the child. Jiang Qin's eyes were red. Her beautiful eyes stared at Fang Yan's face and said, My mother is worried that I will like you, right? Don't think so much, Fang Yan advised. You think too much, Jiang Qin shouted angrily. When did I say I want to like you? When did I say I want to fall in love with you? When did I? I just like to be with you. I just like to talk to you. I just like to listen to you tell me the story of the heart of the essay. I treat you as a teacher, as a friend. Why do you think so much? Why are your thoughts so complicated? Fang Yin was speechless. Yes. Although Jiang Qin was weird, she was a girl who knew how to be reserved. She was young and lively, beautiful and fashionable. However, she was also strict with herself. She was definitely not the kind of bad girl who ran to the society to fool around. In the process of contact between the two, although she spoke impolitely, she respected him in her heart. Fang Yin could feel it. The two were close and abided by the rules. It was just that he couldn't explain it to others. However, because of the dance incident, Jiang Qin's parents became suspicious. Fang Yin couldn't rent the Jiang family anymore. Children had children's thoughts, and adults had adult worries. Even if Fang Yin was a teacher, he couldn't solve the thorny problem that happened to him. Your mother did it for your own good. Fang Yin said softly. Yes, my mother did it for my own good. You did it for my own good. Jiang Qin's voice became louder. At this moment, the little girl's emotions completely exploded. But I'm not good at all. Seeing Fang Yan's helpless and bitter smile, Jiang Qin slowly calmed down. She released her little hand that grabbed Fang Yan's arm, and looked at Fang Yan and asked, You won't go back anymore, will you? Yes. Fang Yan nodded. The school gave me a house. You won't go to my house for dinner anymore, will you? I don't think there's any chance. Then you won't answer my phone anymore? Won't contact me again? Jiang Qin. Fang Yin looked at Jiang Qin's tear-stained face and said, You're still a student. The most important thing for you now is to study hard. Don't think about other things. Okay. Jiang Qin knew that she was powerless to change anything. Just as Fang Yin said, she was still a student. She was still too young. She couldn't do anything. She wiped her tears and took off the bag from her shoulder. She opened the zipper and took out a gray box from inside. This is for you. Jiang Qin held the box and handed it over. What is it? Fang Yin asked. A white shirt. Jiang Qin said with red eyes. I like boys who wear white shirts. I like the way you look in white shirts. You must look better than anyone else in it. At that time, falling in love with someone was not because you had a car or a house, but because the sun was shining that afternoon, and you wore a white shirt. Chapter 60. Under the warm light, the aroma of the steak filled the room. Garnished with 2 pieces of broccoli and a small fruit salad, it looked especially appetizing. The red wine in the glass was made by a count from the Stour region. Count red wine wasn't very famous in the outside world, and many people probably hadn't heard of it. Search engines couldn't find any information about it. That was because Count red wine wasn't sold to the public. After the Jiang family bought the winery, which was located in the best wine production area in France, they drank some of the wine and gave the rest to their friends and business partners. The wine and dishes were delicious, and people were whispering to each other. The atmosphere at dinner was quite harmonious. A noblewoman in a black dress cut the steak on the plate in front of her elegantly, but didn't put it in her mouth. She looked at Lu Chaoga and asked, Chaoga, how are you doing at school? Very well. Lu Chaoga put down the fork in her hand and answered in a low voice. I heard from Zhulu that some people were bullying you. Why are they so hateful? Should I ask Zhulu to talk to your school? Or should I ask your uncle Jiang to talk to the director of education? The noblewoman seemed to care a lot about Lu Chaoga, as if she was going to take care of everything when it came to Lu Chaoga. No need, said Lu Chaoga. She wiped the corner of her mouth with a white cloth and said frankly, There were some small disputes, which are inevitable in any job. I can handle it. That won't do. Our Chaoga is so outstanding. Why should they bully you? Said the noblewoman unhappily. Mom. Jiang Zhulu put down the knife and said with a smile, You said that Chaoga is so outstanding. Why are you still worried about her? Don't worry. No one can bully her. You're always on her side. The noblewoman glanced at Jiang Zhulu and said, Luckily, Chaoga isn't your wife yet. If you get married, I won't have a say in this family. Lu Chaoga didn't say anything, and lowered her head to cut the tomatoes on the plate. Seeing Lu Chaoga's reaction, Jiang Zhulu smiled gently and said, "Mom, don't you trust me and Chaoga? Are we the kind of people who don't know how to be filial to the elderly?" "No, of course not." The lady's beautiful face darkened. She looked at her son and Lu Chaoga with a smile and said, "Chaoga Zhulu, when are you two going to get married? He's not young anymore. He should be married, right? In the past, when you said that you wanted to be busy with your career, I agreed. Now, Zhulu's career was going well, and Chaoga had become the vice principal of the school. That was a success, wasn't it? What other excuses do you have? I'm still waiting for my grandchildren." "Mom," Jiang Zhulu consoled, "we will consider all of these things." "What comprehensive consideration? By the time you've considered everything, I'm already on the verge of death." "Why don't you just listen to me and get married on New Year's Day this year? We can find an auspicious day next year. I've already done some calculations. Zhulu's fate is ocean bottom gold, and Zhaoga's is water. You two are perfect for each other. Zhaoga can also bring good luck to her husband." Lu Chaoga put down her knife and fork and said, "I'm full. Enjoy your meal." After that, she got up and left the dining room, heading upstairs. Jiang Zhulu put down his cutlery as well, his eyelids drooping slightly. Qiang Longtan stared at his wife sharply and said, "Don't you understand that you shouldn't talk when you're eating? Do you have to follow these stupid rules when you're eating? It'd be great if we could sit down together and chat happily. Let the kids decide for themselves." After saying that, Qiang Longtan also left the dining table. "Hey, old Jiang," the rich woman called out. Seeing that her husband was ignoring her, she said to her son angrily, "Look at your father. Are you his biological son, or is Lu Chaoga his daughter? Why are both you and your father talking about outsiders? Are you going to let me stay in this house anymore?" "Mom, it's not like I don't know father's personality." Jiang Zhulu sat down next to his mother and held her hand. "He always doted on Zhaoga more when we were little. I'm used to it. He's good to Zhaoga. Am I not doing the same for Zhaoga? It's because I'm too good to her that I want her to become our Jiang family's daughter-in-law." The rich woman grabbed Jiang Zhulio's hand and said, "My son is so outstanding. There are so many girls who want to marry into our family. Mom, how can you praise yourself like that?" Jiang Zhulu laughed. "I'm your son. Of course you think I'm good in every way. It's not just me who thinks you're good. The entire Jiang city thinks you're good," the rich woman said proudly. "Otherwise, why would the 4 talents of Huaqing only choose you, Meiying Xue, Lan Shanggu, and Lu Shu? Which one of you isn't the most beautiful and talented in our Huaqing? Why didn't they put Li Baldi Zhang Fatso and Wang Er Matzi up? That's because some bored people put the 4 of us together to create some ranking. You don't know how many people we've offended and been ridiculed because of this ranking. Plus, what are the 4 talents of Huaqing? Aren't there still the 7 lunatics of Huaxia? Those people are all crazy. The 4 talents are enough. Why are you thinking so much? Son, when are you going to marry Lu Chaoga? Look at Lu Chaoga's big butt. She looks like she's going to give birth to a son. I have experience in this area." In the Jiang family's mansion, Lu Chaoga had a room of her own. Ever since her parents passed away, Lu Chaoga moved in. The Jiang family treated her well, and treated her like their own daughter. Especially Qiang Longtan, who treated her even more attentively than his own son Jiang Zhulu. Although Mother Jiang, Ren Jing, was a little naggy, she was also very tolerant and took care of her. Jiang Zhulu treated her well too. However, it was also because everyone treated her well that Lu Chaoga always felt like her whole body was covered by mucous membranes, making it hard for her to breathe. It was so heavy that it made her feel uncomfortable. She looked down at her chest. Other than her full breasts, there wasn't much clothing. Maybe it was because her breasts had grown a little. It was really annoying to have to take her wherever she went. She took out the jade guanyin from her neck and gently held it in her palm. A trace of coolness passed through her, and her restless mood gradually calmed down. This was worn around her neck by her mother when she was very young, and it was her most precious ornament. Because of the long time, many details of her life had been forgotten. However, when she held this jade guanyin, Some fragments of her life with her parents would naturally flow into her mind. It was like a floodgate of memories. When it was open, the tide of memories would surge out. When it was closed, the water would recede, and she couldn't remember anything. Knock, knock. There was a light knock on the door. Lu Chaoga walked over and opened the door. Qiang Longtan stood at the door with a loving face and said with a smile, "You haven't eaten enough, have you? Do you want the kitchen to send you another bowl of soup?" "Uncle, no need. I'm full." Lu Chaoga refused. "Come in and have a seat." Qiang Longtan walked into the room and sat down at a small table on the balcony. "Chaoga, make me a cup of coffee. You make the best coffee in our family. Even your aunt and Julu can't compare to you." Lu Chaoga didn't secretly rejoice at the praise. She went to the cabinet and took out a cup of coffee, then carefully steeped it. It wasn't freshly ground coffee beans, but as long as it was carefully steeped, it would have a very extraordinary taste. Lu Chaoga put a cup of coffee in front of Qiang Longtan, then pulled out a chair and sat across from him. Qiang Longtan took a sip of the coffee, letting the bitter aroma reverberate in his mouth. Only then did he look at Lu Chaoga and say with a smile, "It's been so many years, and you know what your aunt is like. She likes you. And that's why she's always trying to make our families closer. She doesn't mean any harm." "I understand," said Lu Chaoga indifferently. "Of course, it's really annoying to talk about this kind of thing too much. I'll have a good talk with her and ask her to stop pressuring you on this matter. Young people should solve their own problems. Why should old people like us get involved?" Lu Chaoga was grateful in her heart, but her face was as calm as a mirror. "Uncle, let's not talk about it. I don't want to put you in a difficult position." "What's there to put me in a difficult position?" Qiang Longtan put down the cup of coffee and said seriously, "I'm trying to reason with her. Does she want to quarrel with me? Besides, talking about this issue over and over again is like bullying others and trying to get back at her." Qiang Longtan looked at Lu Chaoga with pity and said, "You came to our Jiang family when you were 6, and I've always treated you as my own daughter. Whether you want to be Jiang Zhuliu's wife or not, you're a part of our Jiang family. No one will treat you as an outsider. Don't feel any pressure on this matter. If you like Jiang Zhuliu, then be with him. If you don't like him, then kick him aside. I trust in Chaoga's taste, and I believe that you'll be able to find the man you like. You're the one in charge here, and no one is allowed to interfere." "Thank you." Lu Chaoga was finally touched, and she thanked him again. "There's nothing to thank me for." Qiang Longtan waved his hand and said, "There's no need for thanks between father and daughter. You're always treating yourself as an outsider. That's not good." Lu Chaoga smiled but didn't say anything. No matter how well the Jiang family treated her, she still felt a deep sense of loneliness. There was one kind of irreplaceable feeling that was more peaceful than love, more enduring than friendship, and more touching than family. People looked forward to it every day when they were away from home. People got tired of each other when they returned home. That kind of feeling was called father and mother. Chapter 61. Jiang Zhulu went upstairs and saw that the door to Lu Chaoga's room was open. His father's voice came from inside. He didn't go in, but went to his study on the 3rd floor. He picked up the phone on the desk and saw that there were several missed calls. However, none of these people were worthy of him calling back. He rummaged through the phone book and dialed the person he wanted. Very soon the call was connected. The person smiled and said, "Young Master Jiang, how come you have the time to call an uncouth man like me? The weather is good today. I'm going to ask Mr. Du out for a few rounds. I wonder if Mr. Du has time? That's too bad. Today, one of my brothers is getting married. I have to go and help him. The wedding date can't be changed. How about, young Master Jiang, let's postpone it for 2 more days?" Then postpone it for 2 more days. The smile on Jiang Zhuliu's face gradually faded. "Mr. Du, why did you stop on the small matter I asked you to do?" "Small matter? What small matter?" Du Qing asked. "Fang Yan, a high school Chinese teacher." Jiang Zhulu cursed in his heart. "This old fox. Wait until you beg me one day. See how I'll torture you." "I owe my young Master Jiang. It would have been better if you didn't mention it." Now that you mention it, I have to complain to you. Didn't you ask me to do that matter? I didn't think much and handed it over to my reliable brother. But guess what? Jiang Zhulu didn't answer. He hated this way of talking that deliberately left people hanging. If Du Qing was his subordinate, he would have smashed him with the club. They've come to find us. Du Qing understood Jiang Zhulu's personality. He didn't starve him for too long and said the answer himself. Not only did he come, he also brought a big shot that I can't afford to offend. Jiang Zhulu smiled and said, Mr. Du, you're too humble. In Huaqing, is there anyone that you can't afford to offend? Io, my young master Jiang, you're putting me on a stove. I come from a small family. There are many people in Huaqing that I can't afford to offend. I can't afford to offend you, young master Jiang. That brat brought Lu Gong to my door. Old Lu scolded me harshly, and I apologized to him. I even used my old tree big red gown to compensate him. Tell me what the hell is going on? Lu Gong. Jiang Zhulu was thinking about the background behind this name. The Prime Minister of the academic world. The former Prime Minister personally evaluated it, Du Qing reminded. Hearing Du Qing's words, Jiang Zhulu had an impression. That old man was indeed an anomaly. He didn't have any power or influence, and the highest position he had was the principal of a school. However, he had devoted himself to the education of Guangnan for decades, and had students all over the world. If one thought about it carefully, Jiang Zhulu was also his student. Of course, some students were willing to acknowledge him as their teacher, but there were also students who were unwilling to acknowledge him as their teacher. Jiang Zhulu was clearly the type of person who was unwilling to admit defeat. What's the relationship between Lu Gong and that kid? Lu Gong is that kid's grandfather. In that case, Boss Du has no way of chasing him out of Huaqing. Eldest young master Jiang, old Lu has come knocking on my door. No matter what, I have to give him some face. For someone like old Lu, if he's determined on something, no one can compete with him. Eldest young master Jiang, isn't he just a high school teacher? What kind of waves can he create? Let's just let this matter go. You say human psychology is really strange. Jiang Zhulu chuckled and said, If it's in the past, I really didn't think much of that kid. I just said it casually, thinking that what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve. Since this kid is so good at jumping around, I really want to arm wrestle with him. This time, he has no choice but to leave. Ha ha ha, eldest young master Jiang is really bold. No wonder people say that the new generation excels the old. I old Du can't accept that I'm getting old. Boss Du, if there's a chance, let's play golf together, Jiang Zhulu said. Definitely, definitely. After hanging up the phone, Jiang Zhulu stood at the window and fell into deep thought. Fang Yan. He muttered these two words. Teacher Fang Yan was very troubled right now. Ever since his Sparrow Bridge version of Farewell to Cambridge Again, and learning Rainy Alley in a Rainy Alley became popular, it caused the whole school to discuss it. The students liked this novel and interesting teaching method, and the parents thought it was the model of quality education in the new era. After learning these two poems, the 9th class students' interest in poetry was unprecedentedly high. The latest issue of Rosefinch School magazine published 3 poems, 2 of which were written by the 9th class students. One was the work of Qin Yitian, and the other was the work of Huang Haoren. The prose and short story section also had several works by the 9th class students. Many parents came to the door, hoping to transfer their children from other classes to the 9th class. In the past, everyone tried their best to send their children to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd class, the 3 elite classes. Now, because of the existence of the language teacher, Fang Yan, there were even some students from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd classes who wanted to transfer to the 9th class. Fang Yan wasn't the teacher in charge of the 9th class, so he didn't have the right to decide whether a student should stay or not. However, some parents were anxious, thinking that Fang Yan was also a teacher in the school and could definitely help solve this problem. Fang Yan usually rejected such requests. His own job wasn't stable. How could he have the ability to transfer other children's classes? Because of the class-hopping craze brought about by Fang Yan, he became the public enemy of all the teachers in the school. Isn't that kid good at making trouble? I want to see how his students can score during the mock test. Students should be down to earth. What's the point of doing all those fancy things? Harming others and oneself. Swimming in the Sparrow River. Strolling in the rainy alley. Who's to blame if there's a problem? The teachers were unconvinced. Why was it that after working for so many years, and being so experienced in the industry, a young man like him could seduce our students with just a few tricks? The teacher in charge of the first, second, and third class, these three top classes, were even more prejudiced against Fang Yan, feeling that he had stolen their limelight. One had to know that the so-called top class was to provide the best students with the best teachers. These three classes recruited students based on their grades, and no one was allowed to break the rules. This rule was set by the old principal Lu Gong when he was the principal. If he didn't do this, then the principal's son, the vice principal's son, the mayor's daughter, the vice mayor's niece, and all the other high-ranking officials would all send in a relative or friend's child. How could the top class still be a role model? This was also the reason why Zheng Guodong, the director's son, Li Mingqiang's son, Li Yang, and the teacher in charge of the 9th class, Chen Dehai's son, Chen Tao, were not able to enter the small class and could only be assigned to the 9th class. It was fine if the teachers from other classes hated Fang Yan. After all, they were direct competitors. The problem was, even the teacher in charge of the 9th class, Chen Dehai, hated Fang Yan to the core. Chen Dehai had repeatedly lost in front of Fang Yan. This was nothing new. The worst thing was, he had been the teacher in charge for so long, and those students had never thought of transferring to him. Now Fang Yan had only been here for a month, and those students were fighting to be the first to vote. Wasn't it obvious who was better and who was worse? Therefore, Chen Dehai's heart was filled with anger, and he looked like he could explode at any time. Fang Yan turned a blind eye to his aggressive attitude. During class and after school, when he ate, he didn't even put him in his eyes. This made Chen Dehai feel even more insulted. When Fang Yan was standing on the podium, a boy stood at the door of the classroom. Reporting. The boy shouted with a clear voice. Fang Yan turned around, and was stunned by the boy's handsome appearance. Isn't this guy the young version of Louis Koo? When Louis Koo and Li Ruodong acted in The Legend of the Condor Heroes, he was still a pretty boy. Later he took the self-deprecating route, which made him one of the 3 most influential black stars in Hong Kong. Wow, it's Tang Chung! A girl exclaimed. Tang Tang. Why is he in our class? Isn't he in the first class? What is this guy doing here? Fang Yan frowned. It seemed that this guy was very famous. What's the matter? Fang Yan asked. I'm here to report, Tang Chung said with a smile. When he grinned, 2 charming dimples immediately appeared on his face. So handsome! Another group of infatuated girls exclaimed. Report. Fang Yan looked at Tang Chung and said, Are you a student of the 9th class? From now on, yes. Tang Chung handed over the paper in his hand and said, This has Principal Zhang's signature. It's Principal Zhang again. Fang Yan cursed in his heart. This old guy pushed Qin Etienne over, making him live in fear every day, for fear that if he was not careful, she would take the opportunity to take him down. Now there's Tang Chung. Does he think that the 9th class is an entertainment company? Handsome boys and beautiful girls kept recommending him to this class. Fang Yan took the paper and looked at it. There was indeed Zhang Xiaofeng's handwritten letter, and it was also stamped with the school's seal. It should be true. Which class were you in before? Fang Yan asked. The first class, Tang Chung said. Huh. Fang Yan was even more depressed. Another one from the first class. Aren't you adding fuel to the fire? Isn't the first class fine? Why did you come to the 9th class? Fang Yan asked. Because Qin Etienne also came. Tang Chung looked at Qin Etienne in the last row of the classroom and said enthusiastically, I was afraid that she would be lonely here. Wow, there was another burst of exclamation. However, this time Fang Yan didn't understand what the students were shouting about. They came to find Qin Etienne. What does it have to do with you? Besides, he said that he was worried that Qin Etienne would be lonely in the 9th class. Didn't he mean that except for him, Tang Chung, no one else was worthy to be Qin Etienne's friend? This kid's tone was really arrogant. Of course, I also want to know the famous teacher Fang Yin in the school. Tang Qing took the initiative to extend his hand to Fang Yin, and got along with Fang Yin with the etiquette of an adult, and said, "Mr. Fang, please advise me in the future." Fang Yin hesitated a little, but still reached out and shook hands with him. Soon he felt a strong force coming towards him. "You know martial arts?" Fang Yin looked at Tang Qing with some surprise. Chapter 62. A person who knows martial arts is what we call a person who practices martial arts. In Yanjing dialect, it refers to a person who practices martial arts. Tang Qing's ancestors used to make a living as escorts. They would escort the important goods of their clients to travel far and wide, climb black mountains and cross dangerous rivers. It was common for them to encounter 3 to 5 robbers, or some petty thieves. This required the escort to be highly skilled. It would not be a problem for them to fight 3 to 5 people at once. Now the Tang family started off as a logistics company. They had hundreds of cargo ships that passed through Huaqing's major ports to various parts of the world. They were a famous shipping tycoon in Huaqing. Although the Tang family's method of escorting had changed, the Tang family's pursuit of martial arts and strength had never stopped. Influenced by his ancestors, Tang Qing also developed a strong interest in this area. Moreover, Tang Qing was quite talented in this area. He could be considered one of the best among the younger generation of the Tang family. In a one-on-one fight, no one his age could beat him. Even in his father's generation, there were very few people who could beat him. Tang Qing was handsome and had an outstanding temperament. Coupled with the nurturing and influence of his good family background, he was knowledgeable and versatile. He was the vice president of the school's martial arts club and a key member of the school's basketball team. At this age, Tang Qing was the school's most dazzling star. He was also the prince charming in the hearts of countless girls who had just experienced their first awakening of love. If Qin Yitian was the well-deserved queen of the school belle of Rosefinch Secondary, then Tang Qing was the undisputed school hunk of Rosefinch Secondary, tall, rich and handsome. The two of them entered the first class of Rosefinch Secondary with the best results. They came from good families and looked good together. Everyone thought they were a match made in heaven. Even Tang Qing himself thought so. He felt that Qin Yitian was the one for him. Under Tang Qing's deliberate efforts, his relationship with Qin Yitian was indeed closer than others. Even Qin Yitian, who never ate with anyone, accepted his invitation and attended his birthday party. While he was indulging in the present and looking forward to their beautiful future, Qin Yitian suddenly skipped work. This matter was tantamount to a blow to his head. Why did Qin Yitian skip work for no reason? If Qin Yitian wanted to skip work, why didn't he discuss it with him? It would have been fine if he had informed them in advance. Tang Qing was also a rather arrogant boy. He didn't immediately confront Qin Yitian in a fit of rage. Instead, through his friend's open and secret investigations, he received a piece of news that made him want to vomit blood. Qin Yitian had jumped to Class 9 because he liked Class 9's language teacher, Fang Yin. It was said that on the first day, she launched a love attack on Fang Yin in front of everyone. Tang Qing had seen Fang Yin before, but he had never thought of greeting him. In his opinion, a person like Fang Yin was just a clown trying to please the crowd. In a school with a strict hierarchy, what could a young man without a strong background and without studying abroad do? Either he would lower his body and sink into the abyss and wait until the opportunity was ripe, or he had enough experience to get a promotion, or he would walk to the other extreme like Fang Yin. Tang Qing didn't appreciate the latter. With his father's help, Tang Qing was able to transfer to Class 9 as he wished. It was difficult to jump from another class to a lower class, but to transfer from a lower class to Class 9, this was difficult for many people in the school to understand, and it was something that had never happened in Rosefinch Secondary's many years of existence. Especially the teacher of Class 1, Lin Lin. The old woman who was in the midst of menopause wanted to throw Fang Yin to the ground and tear off a few pieces of flesh from his body. Qin Yitian left, Tang Qing also left. Was Class 1 still Class 1 now? If other people followed suit, where would she hide her face as the teacher? Tang Qing knew that Qin Yitian was a proud girl, And he knew what kind of boy she liked. He followed her here, stood next to Fang Yan, and was better than him in every aspect. At least in appearance, he had a great advantage. If he made Fang Yan lose face a few more times, would she still like a man like this? Definitely not. Therefore, Tang Qing wanted to use his advantage to give Fang Yan a taste of his own medicine. He wanted him to be in so much pain that he couldn't stand up straight, and he wanted him to roll on the ground. Something's not right, Tang Qing thought in his mind. When a person is attacked by an external force, the body will naturally adopt a defensive posture. In other words, when Tang Qing forcefully held Fang Yan's hand, Fang Yan should also use a corresponding amount of force to prevent himself from getting hurt. However, Fang Yan didn't do that. If Tang Qing's hand was iron, then Fang Yan's hand that was held in his hand was a ball of cotton. No matter how much strength he used, Fang Yan's hand was limp, and he could not resist at all. Cotton can't break iron, but can iron flatten cotton? Even if it was flattened, the cotton would bounce back again and return to its original state. Fang Yan looked calm and said with a smile, "Welcome Tang Qing to Class 9. Class 9 is a warm family. Except for Zheng Guodong, Li Yang and Chen Tao. These three flies." Puff. The three people who were watching the fun in the back row were all shot. Fang Yan called them flies in front of the whole class. Their faces were flushed red, and they felt so ashamed that they wanted to crawl into a hole to hide themselves. They knew that if Fang Yan's words were spread, they were afraid that from today onwards, the School Hedonist Trio would change their name to the School Flies Trio. The School Flies Trio? Was there a worse nickname than this? Think about those disgusting little things flying around in front of you. I'm afraid you wouldn't even be able to eat. Chen Tao was about to stand up and curse, but he was pulled back by Zheng Guodong. After all, Zheng Guodong was born in a merchant family, and his scheming was deeper than Chen Tao and Li Yang. He knew that a little impatience would spoil great plans. The other students are very good. They are like diligent and cute little bees, waving their wings every day to collect pollen and make nectar. They are our closest friends. Everyone laughed. If Fang Yan had just described them as little bees, they wouldn't have thought that it would be a surprise. However, he first described Zheng Guodong and the other two as flies, and then said that the others were bees. When comparing the two, the comedic effect was quite obvious. Many people looked at Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao with mocking expressions. Zheng Guodong and the other two held their heads high as if nothing had happened. But in their hearts, they were extremely vexed, embarrassed, and angry. Tang Qing did not laugh. Not only did he not laugh, but a hint of anxiety appeared in his eyes. No matter how much strength he used, he could not hurt Fang Yan at all. Steel was still steel, and cotton was still cotton. He felt that his palm was getting harder and hotter. Even his uncle, Tang Yi, the martial arts fanatic who had practiced the Tang family style for decades and reached the God realm, would also be a little abnormal when he competed with him in strength. Fang Yan did not. It was as if he did not grab his hand at all, or rather, he was not grabbing his hand at all. It's only right for me to teach you. You're the student and I'm the teacher. I have the responsibility to pass on the knowledge I know to you. A master can lead you through the door, but cultivation depends on the individual. Just like Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao, I tried very hard to teach them, but they were unwilling to learn. It's as if I was trying to kill them by forcing them to learn. To put it bluntly, what does it have to do with me whether they learn or not? Am I right? Zheng Guodong and the other two were shot in the chest once again. Tang Qing did not answer. He was still exerting his strength. He was exerting his strength to show Fang Yan his strength. But why was this guy not reacting at all? Tang Qing, I don't think you're a bad person. You'd better not hang out with those three flies. They're notorious in school now. Other than their kind, the flies, no other students are willing to hang out with them. Don't let them ruin you. Li Yang was about to cry. Teacher, I'm your student too, alright? Don't bully me like this, okay? If you insult me like this in public, my dad will fight you to death if he finds out. Fang Yan seemed to have heard Li Yang's inner voice. He shook hands with Tang Qing as he turned around to look at the back row and said, I'm sure you guys are not convinced by what I said. Now in front of everyone I'll give you a chance. You give me a reason to respect you and I'll immediately apologize to you in front of everyone. And I'll take back everything I've said just now. Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao looked at each other and thought seriously. No one came to mind. Fang Yin sighed softly and said, I don't ask you to respect your teachers and unite with your classmates. I don't ask you to have high personal quality and cultivation. Even if you have the cheek to say that you're filial to your parents at home, I'm willing to pretend to believe you. I can't verify this kind of thing, can I? But you don't even dare to say this. Don't even dare to tell a lie. Is this the only advantage you have? The reason you don't dare to say it is not because you don't want to lie. It's because you don't realize that this is a virtue worthy of respect. Am I right? Fang Yin turned to look at Tang Qing and said, Student Tang Qing, take this as a warning. You're all students, and the first task now is to improve your studies. Don't learn from Zheng Guodong, and the other two, always playing tricks behind the scenes to harm teachers and bully classmates. Fang Yin leaned close to Tang Qing and whispered, Let us father and son have a private word. Even if you want to beat me up, you have to learn the skill first before you do it, right? Tang Qing stared with his eyes wide open. Does this guy understand everything? He stepped back and wanted to loosen his grip, but found that his hand couldn't break free from Fang Yan's grip. Fang Yan's palm, which was as soft as cotton a moment ago, suddenly became as hot as steel. A ferocious force crazily surged into his palm. Plop! Tang Qing's knees went soft, and his body knelt down in front of Fang Yan. Fang Yan hurriedly bent down to help him up, and said reproachfully, How can you worship a teacher like this? It's not popular now. This kid is touched. Chapter 63. Because Fang Yin was reprimanding the three flies, Zheng Guodong, Li Yang and Chen Tao, everyone's eyes were on the three of them. Some students noticed that Fang Yin and Tang Qing shook hands for too long, but they didn't think too much about it. What's so great about a teacher shaking hands with a student for a long time? Didn't they see that they were talking? However, as they were talking, Tang Qing suddenly knelt down in front of Fang Yin, which surprised them. Why did he kneel down for no reason? What era is this? Do people have to kowtow and kneel when they come to be apprentices? Is it really like what Mr. Fang Yin said, that Tang Qing was touched by his earnest and well-meaning teachings? Tang Qing is indeed a man of etiquette, the boys thought in their hearts. They heard that he was born in a martial arts family, so he paid more attention to etiquette than others. His kneeling posture is so handsome. No wonder he's the most handsome boy in Rosefinch Secondary. The girls naturally had their own thoughts, although they all knew that the person Tang Qing liked was Qin Etian, who was sitting in the last row of the classroom. It was also pleasing to the eye and motivating to learn, wasn't it? It was a pity that Tang Cheng was suffering in silence. His right hand was still held in Fang Yan's hand. His hand, which was soft as if he could crush it with just a little bit of force, had now become hard and hot. An irresistible force surged towards him, suppressing him so much that he couldn't move his body or speak. Even breathing had become extremely difficult. Seal. This was the seal that his grandfather had mentioned. When encountering an opponent with a great disparity in strength, the opponent could completely seal you off, making you unable to feel that you were still alive. Although the current state of his body was a little different from what his grandfather had described, he knew that Fang Yin had used the seal state on him. Now he could do nothing but watch as Fang Yin used him as a prop to put on a one-man show. Fang Yin bowed slightly, one hand holding Tang Qing's palm, the other holding his left arm, looking as if he was trying very hard to pull him up. He said, Student Tang Qing, I can understand your intentions, but you really don't need to be so courteous. Since you came here with the principal's letter of introduction, I naturally have to accept you as my student. Just like I said, as long as you don't be led astray by students like Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao wanted to hug each other and cry. Fang Yin glanced around the classroom and said, There's a table in the last row. You can go and sit there. The seat Fang Yin mentioned was next to Qin Etian, and there was only one empty seat there. Now all the empty tables in the class were used up. If there were more students who transferred here, Fang Yan would have to ask them to go to the logistics department to get their own tables and chairs, or move the tables and chairs from their previous class over. However, Fang Yan was thinking whether he should make a suggestion to the school leaders to prohibit students from small classes from transferring to the 9th class. What would happen if they kept moving around? While speaking, Fang Yan also released the palm that was holding Tongqing's hand. His palm was free, and Tongqing's body immediately regained its strength. He wanted to throw a punch at Fang Yan and fight him to the death. It was humiliating. It was too humiliating. However, he thought about it again and finally didn't make this decision. Just like what Fang Yan said in his ear, if you want to beat him up, you have to learn the skills first, right? Fang Yan's performance today was unfathomable. Before he understood him thoroughly, he couldn't make any reckless moves. If he beat Fang Yan in front of so many people, then soon, he would become the fourth fly in the eyes of Fang Yan and all the students. After all, Fang Yan's identity as a teacher had a natural advantage. If he didn't give enough respect, it would be disrespecting his teacher. This was a serious crime in ancient times, enough to destroy a person's reputation and future. Tongqing wanted to say something, but his throat moved, but he couldn't say anything. His legs were still weak, and his hand that was shaking kept shaking. He was a loser, and a loser shouting at a winner would only make others look down on him. Originally, he wanted to give Fang Yan a show of strength, but he didn't expect to be kicked to the ground. His forehead was dripping with sweat, and he walked to the last row of the classroom with a depressed expression. He sat next to Qin Yitian, and there was only a narrow aisle between them. "What are you doing here?" Qin Yitian held a pencil between his fingers, and his movements were smooth and graceful. Ho Xiaolong, who was next to him, liked Qin Yitian's leisurely and lazy posture when he turned the pencil, but he was too embarrassed to stare at it, so he could only sneak a glance from time to time with a guilty look. Tongqing was beaten by Fang Yan, and even knelt down in public. He was very discouraged and lost his fighting spirit. He said, "I'll accompany you." "I don't need you to accompany me," Qin Yitian said. "Go back. Class 1 is more suitable for you." If Qin Yitian said such words to him in the past, Tongqing would be indifferent. Because she was such a character. She said what she thought without considering your feelings. Or your feelings had nothing to do with her. Tongqing had long been used to her way of speaking. But today, after being hit by Fang Yan, he was particularly sad to hear Qin Yitian's words. After sitting for a long time, Tongqing's mood gradually calmed down. He turned to look at Qin Yitian and said, "Do you like him?" "If you mean Fang Yan." Qin Yitian smiled. "Yes." Tongqing's heart sank. Ho Xiaolong, who was sitting next to Qin Yitian and eavesdropping on their conversation, also felt his heart sink. "It's not like this. The story is not like this." Ho Xiaolong roared in his heart. He was a fan of novels and had read many stories such as My Deskmate is the Campus Belle, and The Beautiful Campus Belle Falls in Love with Me. In those stories, the male protagonists were generally ordinary little losers. However, by chance, they became entangled with the most beautiful campus belle in the whole school, and even became deskmates. At first, of course, the campus belle looked down on them. However, after a long time of dating, their little universe began to explode. Their advantages were magnified infinitely. The campus belle loved them so much that she couldn't extricate herself. All kinds of tall, rich and handsome men came to challenge them, but they were beaten into pieces. Ho Xiaolong was fully prepared to fall in love with the campus belle. However, how did Qin Yitian fall in love with the teacher? He had never read a story like, "The teacher falls in love with the campus belle." "What do you like about him?" Tongqing tried to keep himself calm, and asked in a low voice. Qin Yitian thought for a moment and said, "I don't find anything that I don't like." Tongqing knew that Qin Yitian rarely gave such a high evaluation to a boy. Nothing that he didn't like? That meant he liked everything? You should know. Tongqing wanted to laugh. He wanted to say this sentence in a relaxed and teasing tone. In this way, even if Qin Yitian was angry, he could say that it was just a joke. However, he couldn't laugh no matter what. His expression was so serious. The school prohibits relationships between teachers and students. Whoosh! The tip of the pen drew a breathtaking arc, and then stopped between two of Qin Etienne's fingers. She tilted her head and looked at Tang Cheng. She said, "Is this a problem? Isn't it?" The previous language teacher of the 9th class was fired because he had an ambiguous relationship with a student. Fang Yan. Does he dare? If he can make me fall in love with him, I will immediately quit school and wait for him. If he is fired because he is in a relationship with me, then I will earn money to support the family. Qin Etienne said with his mouth twitching. Tang Cheng's words were nothing to her. Qin Etienne. Tang Cheng couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. It was as if he had experienced the betrayal of the person he loved the most. Although they had never promised each other. However, she should be his. Everyone thought so. Qin Etienne waved his hand and said, "Tang Cheng, I won't fall in love with you. I've known this for a long time. I also told you." "Why?" Tang Cheng clenched his fists. "Childish," Qin Etienne said. "You said I am childish. I can change. I am still young. I can definitely become mature," Tang Cheng said eagerly. He was willing to try. He still wanted to keep her. The school bell and the school hunk should hold hands until they grew old. How could they break up just like that? Could they live up to this title and the expectations of the students? "I mean, the question you asked is childish," Qin Etienne said. "If I like it, I like it. If I don't like it, I don't like it. There is no why, only if I want to." Qin Etienne looked at Tang Cheng and persuaded again. "Tang Cheng, go back. We will still be friends." "I will never go back," Tang Cheng said, gnashing his teeth. "I won't give up like this. I want to compete with him. I must defeat him. I want to let you know that I am a better man than him. I am the most suitable person for you. He can't. He can't give you anything. He can't help you with anything." Tang Cheng. Qin Etienne. Fang Yan stood on the podium and scolded. These two people chattered nonstop. He had been aiming at them for a long time. "Don't talk during class." Tang Cheng felt as if an arrow had pierced his heart. "I am confessing. Please don't disturb others at this time, okay?" It was very rude. Qin Etienne giggled and said, "He can forbid you to talk during class. Can you forbid him to talk during class? You see, he is still better than you, right?" Chapter 64. The Tea People's Commune. The house had not been renovated for a long time, and looked a bit old and decayed. A few shabby tables and chairs were placed randomly, and did not have any sense of beauty. Secluded and clean, these were probably the few advantages of this tea house. There were no other customers in the tea house, except for Fang Yan, who had just walked in. There was only a tea house waiter, who was lying on a rattan chair and dozing off. Fang Yan deliberately increased his footsteps, wanting to wake the tea house waiter up. Unexpectedly, the waiter was sleeping soundly. He did not know if he heard the footsteps, but he just turned over and continued to sleep. Fang Yan had no choice but to shout, "Waiter, give me a pot of Longjing tea." The waiter finally woke up. He was a middle-aged man in his 30s with slightly curly hair and a pale face. He wiped the water stains from the corner of his mouth, adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose, looked at Fang Yan and asked, "What do you want?" "A pot of Longjing tea," Fang Yan said again. "No," the waiter said. "Then what tea do you have here?" Fang Yan asked. "Do you want Maojian tea?" "Only Maojian tea. We grow it at home and stir-fry it by hand." The middle-aged waiter began to advertise his product. Fang Yan carefully looked at the middle-aged man and asked, "Are you the boss?" The middle-aged man smiled bitterly and said, "Also a waiter." "What's your name?" Fang Yan asked. "Zhu Jian," the middle-aged man said. Fang Yan stood up again and walked in front of the middle-aged man. He said with a smile, "I'm Fang Yan. I'm the one who asked you to meet." "Mr. Fang?" Zhu Jian looked at Fang Yan with a face full of shock. "You are Mr. Fang Yan?" Zhu Jian could not help but be surprised. Zhu Jian received a phone call today. The caller claimed to be the current Chinese teacher of Class 9 of Rosefinch High School, Fang Yan. Although Zhu Jian did not want to have any contact with that school, the other party repeatedly persuaded him and said that he could find a way to help him restore his reputation. Zhu Jian hesitated again and again, and finally agreed to meet with Fang Yan. That matter was like a thin and long thorn stuck in his throat, making him unable to eat or sleep peacefully. The heavy burden of seducing a female student made him almost unable to lift his head in front of his family and friends. He needed relief. He needed a chance to travel light. Fang Yan's words hit the nail on the head, making it hard for him to refuse. He originally thought that Fang Yan would be a middle-aged man like him. However, wasn't this young man in front of him a little too young and immature? Isn't Rosefinch High School an elite school? How could he just randomly recruit people? It's me, Fang Yan said. He saw the doubt in Zhu Jian's eyes and said, "Shall we sit down and talk?" "I'll make you a cup of tea," Zhu Jian said. Maojian tea was not as fragrant as Tai Guanyin, not as delicate and graceful as Longjing tea, but it had its own unique charm. The tiny hairs rolled a few times in the boiling water and slowly unfolded. A layer of fine white hair floated up and down in the glass. At first glance, it looked like the tea had not been cleaned. In fact, this white hair was the essence of Maojian tea. People who loved tea called it baihao, because it contained rich substances that were beneficial to the human body. When drinking tea, these baihao should be drunk into the stomach. Fang Yan picked up the glass and took a sip of tea. He carefully felt it and said with a smile, "Good tea." Zhu Jian was expressionless and didn't care about Fang Yan's praise. How many of the words spoken on the surface could be trusted? If I guess correctly, these tea trees grow on the top of the mountain. They are exposed to the wind and rain and the sun, so the leaves don't look green, and the tea looks old. Fang Yan took another sip and commented, "However, the person who picked the tea was very diligent. Every tea leaf was only taken from the tender shoots. The essence of the tea tree was all plucked. The person who fried the tea was also an expert. He used charcoal ash to roast the tea leaves. He didn't use too much fire, and didn't use too much strength, retaining the tenderness of the tea tips and the natural fragrance of the tea leaves. As you said, although he didn't add any spices or tea essences, the taste of the tea was better." Zhu Jian was deeply shocked and said, "Mr. Fang is an expert in the tea ceremony. This tea was planted by my old father. The tea mountain he got was on the top of the mountain. It was difficult to water the tea trees on the top of the mountain. It happened that the weather in southern Hunan was dry these years, so the color of the tea leaves was gray and ugly. In order to sell it at a good price, I asked my parents to only take the tip, which is the tender shoots of the tea tree, and then roast them myself. Later, I lost my job and remembered that I liked to drink tea. I opened a tea house at the entrance of this residential area. As you can see, because of the lack of capital and the remote location, it is very difficult to make a living." Just now, Zhu Jian looked down on and doubted Fang Yan, but now he didn't have the mentality of half-heartedly because of his young face. Fang Yan smiled and said, "I didn't come here to taste tea with Mr. Zhu. I think Mr. Zhu doesn't have the mood to taste tea now." Zhu Jian smiled bitterly and said, "Indeed." Fang Yan looked at Zhu Jian and asked, "Mr. Zhu, is the rumor in the school true?" Zhu Jian didn't answer. He just looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully and said, "I don't understand. Why did you come to ask me this question? Whose position do you represent? Yourself? Rosefinch High School?" "I represent myself," said Fang Yan. "Because of sympathy? Or curiosity?" "Sympathy and curiosity." "I'm also curious," Fang Yan said frankly. "And understanding. Understanding. The understanding that we are in the same boat," said Fang Yan. "What do you mean?" Zhu Jian was puzzled. "Some time ago, I was almost expelled because I danced with a female student in a bar. Of course, if the media reported it, I am afraid it would not be a simple expulsion," said Fang Yan. "You danced with a female student in a bar?" Zhu Jian looked at Fang Yan with vigilance and contempt. "What kind of person is this? Do you think I am the same as you? That's why you came to seek comfort." "There's another story," explained Fang Yan. "It's actually very simple. It's not as dirty as people think." "Why didn't the media report it?" Zhu Jian asked. "Don't the media love this kind of news?" "Because a lot of honest people stood up for me." Fang Yan played with the glass in his hand and said with a smile, "They didn't believe that I would do such a thing. Seems like you are much luckier than me, Zhu Jian sighed. His incident was made known to everyone, causing him to be ostracized by the entire Huaqing education circle. The female student was even more unwilling to be humiliated and transferred to another city to study. He knew they were innocent, but who would believe it? I don't deny that, said Fang Yan. My luck has always been good. Because you've been wronged before. So you want to come and listen to my story. If possible, will you help me reverse the verdict? The most important thing is to prove your innocence, said Fang Yan. This accusation is too heavy. If it's on someone's head, they won't be able to relax for the rest of their lives. And that female student, although I have never seen her, but if she was really wronged, then this incident may destroy her. Yes. Zhu Jian's face was filled with pain. He covered his face with both hands, and tears flowed through the gaps between his slender fingers. His fingers were wet, and the tears flowed to the back of his hand. Destroy her. Fang Yan sighed softly. After a long time, Zhu Jian moved his hands away from his face. There were still traces of tears in his eyes. I can tell you clearly that we are innocent, said Zhu Jian. I swear on my personality. No, my everything. I believe you. Fang Yan nodded. What the hell happened? You are the homeroom teacher of class 9. Do you know Zheng Guodong? Asked Zhu Jian. Yes. Fang Yan nodded. Does it have anything to do with him? I had many conflicts with Mr. Fang when I first became the homeroom teacher of class 9. He skipped class to drink, beat up classmates, and was the bully of the class. And he had dealings with some gangsters in the society. The way he did things didn't seem like a student. He was molesting a female student by the Sparrow River. And I happened to see him. I yelled at him and chased him away. Then, I took off my coat and put it on the girl. I didn't expect this scene to be taken by someone. And it became the evidence of me hugging a female student and having an affair by the river. Zhu Jian punched the thick table and roared. I, Zhu Jian, have read a lot of books. Why would I do such a beastly thing? Have you explained this to the school? Asked Fang Yan. Who would believe it? Zhu Jian roared with red eyes. Who would believe it? Zheng Guodong's father is on the board of the school. Who would believe it? Fang Yan was silent. Zhu Jian's situation was indeed tricky. On one hand, he had been photographed just like himself. On the other hand, he was more careless than himself because his jacket was on the girl. He walked out of the forest with the girl in his arms. If he said he had nothing to do with the girl, very few people would believe him. Of course, if that was the case, if Zhu Jian and the girl who was hurt stood out to accuse Zheng Guodong at the same time, there was still a chance to reverse the situation. The most important problem was that Zheng Guodong's father, Zheng Tiancheng, was on the board of the Rosefinch School. Who would be willing to offend Zheng Tiancheng and still stand out to reverse the case for Zhu Jian when the evidence was conclusive? I believe it, said Fang Yan with a serious expression. I believe you are innocent. Zhu Jian looked at Fang Yan with a surprised expression. I will help you reverse the case. I will prove your innocence, continued Fang Yan. Why? Asked Zhu Jian. He had already made it very clear that Zheng Guodong's father was Zheng Tiancheng. Why was he still willing to risk his life? If he offended Zheng Tiancheng because of him, would he still be able to stay and be the language teacher of class 9? He was afraid that he would end up being expelled from the school like him, right? Because we are all scholars, Fang Yan said with a straight face. They don't believe that scholars are righteous and that scholars have integrity. I believe it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.